The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone. The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Welcome to this podcast. This is episode 61. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And we have Jonathan Kuline in Mr. and Mississauga.
Hello there.
All righty then. So let's. Do we have some? We have some fact check.
We do, and it was related to the fact that we were wondering, given that the synth Sutra was able to do a mind meld with Dr. Girardi, we're like, we didn't know that androids or synths could do that. But it turns out this is actually well established in canon way back in the original series where Spock mind melds with the Changeling probe in the episode The Changeling. And the YouTube video linked here that was going around the interwebs, which is what I found, is Spock mind melding with Coffee Maker.
Was that the one that was like looking for the creator and...
Yeah, something.
It's the one that became V'ger in the first movie, right?
Yeah, people were saying that this was basically the plot of TMP, the motion picture that was many years before, so the predecessor of that.
Yeah, I was watching that one on the TV the other day. It's cool, interesting episode.
Mm-hmm. So now we know you can indeed mind meld with a synth, and perhaps Star Trek Picard says that it can go the opposite way too.
Yeah, I haven't been sleeping at night. That's probably why. Thinking about that. Alrighty. So let's jump into the headlines, and you're up again, Jaime.
Yeah, Apple TV Plus now has a new show called Oprah Talks COVID-19, and she does remote interviews with folks, like in this case, Idris Elba, who tested positive maybe like a week or so ago. I haven't watched it myself because I see a lot of that sort of stuff during the day with the news updates. But I think if anybody could turn this into a more uplifting sort of take on the topic, I would guess that Oprah would be the right person.
And you get a ventilator, and you get a ventilator.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird to see all this sort of COVID. There's the podcast now called COVID something or other that I keep getting notified about every day, and it's like, like so and so likes this episode of whatever podcast du jour about COVID-19. Really exciting stuff. Like we don't have enough of it already, right? All right, what's next?
Yeah, these next three links that we'll have in the show notes for those of you transporting it home are pretty much the same thing, but with different providers. So just about every streaming thingy that you can think of is reducing its streaming quality to help the whole broadband network congestion problem. So that would be Amazon, YouTube, Netflix, which we talked about before, and Apple TV Plus. Probably others. These are just the ones I noticed during the week. Are all sort of doing their part to reduce traffic on the interwebs as we're all stuck at home doing Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Skype and probably watching some Netflix and Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus.
So I know we talked about this last week, and it was focused on Europe, right? That's where the things were coming down. Are any of these in North America as well, or?
I'd have to check the individual links. I thought that some of these had made it the case worldwide, but unclear to me.
Yeah, it says on March. This is written on March 20th. It says that so far streaming in the U.S. does not seem to be affected. Why are they picking on Europe though?
Well, I think it was mandated, wasn't it? I think they were asked
by. Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was like in advance, like in terms of being thoughtful and diligent, or if it was reactive, right? Because the positive take on it would be, we want to make sure that there's not any issues and that business continuity is not disrupted, that people doing online classes students aren't disrupted. The cynical take would be, or the pessimistic take would be, maybe Europe's infrastructure is so creaky that it really can't handle all these people being locked down at once. I don't know.
That could be true too.
Because either one could be, but I'm like, the United States isn't that good. We largely pay the most for the worst.
Yeah.
Or we're very close to it. So I'm surprised that we're not running into issues.
Yeah. It does say here, decision comes after EU industry chief Thierry Berton called for on streaming platforms to help reduce their load on the continent's infrastructure. So, yeah, interesting. All right. I'm surprised it's not being done in the States, to be honest with you, the population you guys have. And on a cheery note, what's next? I hope it's cheery.
It's still, it's cheerier, right? It's still related to COVID-19, but it's a more positive one. So the Disney Pixar film Onward, after only being in the theaters for like a week or two, is going to be on digital platforms. Well, this says today. What day was that? March 20th. So as of Friday, you could, rent and download sort of thing. And now it'll be on Disney Plus on April 3rd. So I guess if you really wanted to own it, rather than having it be part of your never-ending Disney Plus subscription, you could buy it now while it's still warm in the theater. And if you didn't, it was like, just wait and watch it with the kiddos on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Aren't the theaters in the States closed like they are here in Canada?
Yeah. And that's sort of the way the world is right now, isn't it? It's really weird. And I think last week we had talked about like, hey, here's some of these Universal movies that are going to go from theater onto streaming platforms or rental platforms. We talked about some that are going to launch on there. This one's kind of in between because it had just come out.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that the Invisible Man's on the Disney box or the Apple TV box earlier today. That didn't have a theatrical debut, didn't it?
I think it had just come out, didn't it?
Yeah, it was out, but it was only out for a very short while. It was same with The Hunt, and there was Emma. There was a few of them that were like in the theater as recently as right before they closed, that are now available for rent and ownership. I guess. Right.
And we've talked about there are going to be films coming out that were meant to be in the theater that are going to go right to streaming services. Do we know?
I guess we'll find out. I mean, they've delayed a lot of the blockbustery stuff, right? They've the big stuff is definitely still. They're not gonna give away $1 billion at the box office if they can still get it.
Yeah, there's a rom-com with Dinesh, what's his name, Kumail Nanjiani.
Yep.
That is going straight to Netflix, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, I'm sure it will do, well in that capacity. It certainly wasn't a tentpole like Avengers or something of that caliber, right? It wasn't going to pull in like $1 billion at the box office. So I think it was a prudent financial decision to say, whatever, if Netflix gives us money for it, just cut your losses and call it good.
Right. Well, speaking of which, Jonathan, you got something here, right?
Yeah, so a couple, just sort of picking up off what Jaime was just talking about. So they announced a couple more things that are going to be accelerated into the realm of digital. So the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that we've talked about a few times on this pod is zooming its way into the digital sphere much faster than it was expected. I think usually they say it takes about 3 months for it to move from theaters to digital, and this one is coming out on March 31st. So it would have been like, again, same thing. It's like really, really fast turnaround. 46 days after it came out in the theater, 6 weeks. So that's pretty cool. And then Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, or Birds of Prey here in Canada, is also getting that. So that's available on VOD already. So you can watch that one quickly. Right. So again, nice that if you're trapped at home like all of us are, you can sort of indulge in a few things that were going to be down the line. Although that's a fine notion, except it's going to run out at some point, right? Like they can only do that for so long, and you can choose to view it as, oh, isn't that nice, or it's pretty cynical. They know you're trapped here, so they want your money. So yeah. By
the same token, so on that same link that you've got there, I don't know if you see it there, but there's a domestic film exhibitor closures table. Mm-hmm. Over 8,000 AMCs, 7,000 Regals, 4,600 Cinemarks, all 1,695 Cineplex in Canada are closed, and then a whole bunch of various small places throughout, including Landmark Cinemas here in Canada, are all closed up.
Yep, so it's pretty thorough now, the closure of theaters. And speaking of delays and postponements and closures, Wonder Woman 1984, one of the most anticipated sci-fi comic book movies of the year, has also now been delayed. Not really a surprise, I suppose. Like so many things, we sort of knew that it was coming. It was just a matter of when. And so unfortunately, we're not going to see this until they've actually given it a date, which I found a little surprising. We had, Black Widow, again, was another huge sort of tentpole movie that was coming, and that one's been delayed indefinitely. This one they've moved. It was supposed to come out on June 5th, and now it's coming out on August the 14th. So I guess the people at Warner Brothers know something we don't about how this is going to be resolved. Interesting prognostication.
I mean, when you think about it, right, just if this continues on as a pattern, and unless the Academy makes a special exemption from their normal rules, we might be entering a world where your contenders for Best Picture are Wonder Woman 1984 and Sonic the Hedgehog.
No. Everything's going to be fine by Christmas when all the Oscar buzz movies come out.
Right. Well, there's also, don't forget, there's also the big film festivals throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like TIFF is supposedly like last week of August, right? And I'm sure there's other ones in Sundance and
Venice. Cannes is actually coming up in the not distant future, so...
Or is it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's all hypothetical. Again, according to the very strict rules, you'd have Sonic the Hedgehog leading the pack right now for Best Picture, Best Animated Film, Best Score, like just everything. How many other films have come out this year? Not that many.
But it's funny. I think about this a little bit, and I hadn't really thought of put it in the thoughts, but I'm going to do it right now. And that is that the writers' strike certainly affected the kind of TV and movies we watch now. Like that whole the O.J. Simpson trial. The writer's strike led to all this reality TV crap that we watch now, right? And I'll tell you about it right after this, which I actually hate that convention. But I wonder if once the dust does settle, if the way we consume these kind of medias will change. Will it become that, going to the theater will be such a rare experience? Like I don't mean like theater like acting, but I'm talking about cinemas, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously rock shows will come back and sports events will come back, but the whole idea of getting that big bag of popcorn and that big gulp and sitting back and watching two giant robots battle each other over Japan, right? Mm-hmm. Will that kind of experience kind of go away, right? Or will we recover from that, right?
Yeah, there's an interesting I listened to an interesting podcast earlier today. Bill Simmons on his podcast was interviewing Jimmy Kimmel. They used to work together, and Kimmel's been doing home shows where he basically gets on one end of a Zoom and has a conversation with somebody else on the other end of the Zoom, and he's been doing that, I guess, online, and next week they're going to start taking it onto TV, doing it that way. Right. And it sparked a good conversation between the two of them about, how serious does this pose a threat to television as we know it, this COVID-19 pandemic, because there's been a lot of feedback that people are like, oh, this is actually a really interesting format. You get a little more time with people. You can do things, it's not as, disrupted. You don't need the whole studio setup and everything else. And Kimmel was joking, it's just a matter of time before they're like, you don't have to leave the house to do your job anymore. You really could see a trend in some of these things and people changing the formats. And, if a studio or a network doesn't have to pay for a huge studio to have a broadcast show, why would they? Yeah. So you're right. This could have a lot of sort of long-lasting implications across different types of media.
Now, I was kind of wondering too when we would hear the sort of first, famous person come down with this, and I just stumbled across on the link you had there. Actor Mark Bloom apparently has died of COVID-19 at the age of 69. So, and I don't really know who he was, but he was apparently in Suddenly Seeking Susan, which I think was Madonna's movie, right? Back in the day.
Desperately Seeking Susan?
Yeah.
No, that was a TV show, wasn't it?
Was it? I thought Madonna was in a weird movie.
Maybe. I don't know. I might be getting it mixed up.
Yeah, he was. Let's see.
Oh yeah, I know this guy. Sure, he was on a ton of shows. He was the bad guy. Oh yeah, you're right. Desperately Seeking Susan was the Madonna movie. He was the the foil in Crocodile Dundee. He was the boyfriend that Crocodile Dundee was trying to steal the girl away from the boyfriend. He was like the smarmy guy. Yeah. That was Mark Blum. Oh, really? Huh. Well, that's sad. He was in a lot of movies and TV shows in the 80s and 90s. He's one of those faces. He's one of that guys who as soon as you see him, you're like, oh yeah, I totally know that guy.
Yeah, like the doctor in Picard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a character actor. You just know from seeing him. Yeah, that's sad news. Yeah, there's been a few sort of smaller scale celebrity people who have passed away. There was a very famous African saxophonist that died this week, and a few other that are sort of tied to COVID as well. But it really is just a matter of time before somebody,
Well, we've talked about Idris Elba has contracted it, and Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson have, right? It's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
Prince Charles. I mean,
So I heard about that today. How did he get it?
I guess they're trying to backtrack and figure that out. But that's another scary one. And again, he's in his 70s, 71. So
yeah, but I mean, think about that. The future King of England, right? That's a big name.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say it was the people who are against him become the future King of England, who wanted to go straight from the Queen to William. That would be my guess as to who gave it to him.
Right.
Not quite as popular as his son.
Well, speaking of being idiots, so just one last sidebar. I don't know if you heard about the guy who was going around licking toilets to sort of poo. Apparently, he's come down with it. So
yeah, there's been a bunch of those stories of people acting badly. Well, you reap what you sow sometimes.
That's true.
Right. So our next piece was it's actually like mixing a little good news stuff this week. So the coronavirus obviously hit very, very hard in China, and China had a huge crackdown on public gatherings. There's news this week that they're opening up some of the movie theaters there again as the pandemic in that region starts to recede a little bit. Obviously not in places like Wuhan and in the region that's from, but in some of the more far-flung areas, they're starting to loosen the restrictions on gatherings and stuff like that. So it's good to see that we're getting some positive signs. Obviously, they're going to be the sort of bellwether for how these things can start to recede, because it was there that it hit the hardest and first. So that was a very positive thing. Again, I guess we'll see now as people start to gather what the sort of next step is and how that goes and how people are treating it. But it's an interesting one. I think obviously, Hollywood is going to be watching that one very quickly to sort of see, are people still nervous? Are they going back? Because you're right. I think it has the potential to be very, very long-term impactful for things like that.
So, I mean, I raised the question whether it's too soon, because I heard today that, it's March 26th, and we're a couple of weeks away from the peak of the virus here in North America, right? So is it like receding in China? Are we sure?
Well, so we will politely say it depends on how much you trust the numbers that come out of a country that has an authoritarian government.
Right. Gotcha. You're talking about the U.S., right?
Oh, you mean the country that today threatened apparently to put soldiers at the Canadian border?
Really? To do what?
To prevent illegal migration of people from Canada to the United States, which apparently happens 400 times an entire year, and apparently only like 30 of those are people who are actual Canadians. It's more.
So they don't want healthy people to go into the States.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That works for me.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting country.
Anyways, back on the good news front. This one just absolutely thrills me. We got news late last week, that we're going to get a live action version of Ahsoka Tano in the second season of Mandalorian. Oh, nice. And it's going to be played by none other than Rosario Dawson, who I am a huge fan of. She's a tremendously talented actress, and this is a really, really exciting announcement. I think, for those of us who have really gotten into Clone Wars Wars and into Rebels over the past few years, the idea of her finally being realized as a live-action character is certainly a thrill. And to have it played by somebody of that caliber is even more thrilling. Yeah. So this is really, really cool.
Now, isn't Ashoka a young Jedi? Like, she's a young Jedi in the first bunch of the Clone Wars.
She is. She starts out as a little girl on the first season of Clone Wars, but the Clone Wars are meant to span time, and so by the time we get to the season that is currently airing on Disney Plus, she's a young woman.
Okay.
And then we also see her in Rebels, which is set not even a year, like a year-ish before the events of Rogue One. It's more sort of tied into that time frame. We see her as a woman, again, a young girl woman, but a woman. She's fully grown. And so if you math that out to when we get to The Mandalorian, which is supposed to be set, I think, 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, she would be Rosario's age, which would be, late 30s, early 40s. So, yeah, I think it maths out logically. One of the things that came up in the most recent Star Wars movie was that there's a scene towards the end of the film, spoilers if you haven't seen it, there's a scene towards the end of the film where Rey is trying to connect with the Force and the spirits of the Jedi before her, and she does, at which point you hear all these voices from the past that speak to her, and it is, it's Liam Neeson, it's all these different voices of people who have played all the different Jedis before, and one of those is Ashley Eckstein, who plays the voice of Ahsoka. So by the time we get to Rise of Skywalker, Ahsoka has died.
Right. Spoilers.
Yeah, but we don't know how, and we don't know when. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see in Mandalorian. Maybe we get her as a regular recurring character. Maybe this is the story of how she meets her end. But either way, it's pretty, really, really cool. It's not small cool. This is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Big fan of hers.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
All right. And some sad news.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and forth here. So, a little bit of sad news. So, the co-creator of Asterix the Gaul, the very famous cartoon or comic drawn graphic novels, I guess, over the years, they've been translated into so many languages. It's a very, very, very influential French comic strip. Has died. His name was Albert Uderzo. He was a French man of Italian descent, and he was 92 years old. And I'm hard pressed to find a lot of people who didn't at some point touch Asterix in their comic experience, who are sort of
Asterix and Obelix.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a very, very popular. It was right there with Tintin, that was or Tintin if you're American. That was very, very popular, especially here in Canada, where we are a fully bilingual country, French and English, obviously being our two national languages. It was very, very common to see the original French versions of Asterix and Obelix, or when I was a kid, I remember going to visit my friends and family in Germany, and again, very popular in German as well. So translated into a ton of languages, really, really influential, and a lot of illustrators were heavily influenced by the work of Albert Uderzo. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it's sad to see him go.
I read a whole bunch of these. It was amazing to find out many years later that they translate all the characters' names of the village to be puns in your native language, which is
really?
wild. So I know, so Asterix and Obelix, sort of main characters. The druid to me is Getafix, and the chieftain is Vital Statistics, which may or may not make sense if you were reading it in French. And I know for sure it's different in German because I had a friend who knew of Asterix from reading the comics in German.
But they're Asterix and Obelix in American English?
Yeah, it was all the Latin jokes that they put in the original one. Right?
Oh.
They did them in French, they did them in Latin. Like, it actually did sort of rely on you having, again, back in the day, you would have had to take Latin class, right? So you was making all these little, like, Latin puns and stuff like that. So
right, gotcha.
Yeah. I've even seen the live-action movie, which I want to say has Roberto Benigni as a character, like as Caesar or something. I can't remember if that's actually true, but it certainly feels like it's true.
Yeah. And it's, again, over the years, it's, again, particularly in Europe, but also worldwide, video games and all kinds of spin-offs and toys. And like this was a very big franchise in a lot of parts of the world. And Albert was hugely influential.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never really connected the dots that I think the Disney afternoon TV show, The Gummy Bears, I'm pretty certain they're based on the premise is based on Asterix, because they have the gummy berry juice that makes them sort of invulnerable to the villains, and that's very similar to the potion from the Druids in Asterix.
Absolutely. Next up, we got some more good news, so we're going to bounce back and forth.
What? More good news?
More good news! A trailer has been posted for the return of Red Dwarf. So,
did they ever really go away, though?
Well, they haven't really gone away, you're right. But at the same time, it's always good news when they're going to do a new season, and especially in a time like now where there's a lot of, as you say, very heavy news. The news that we're going to get a new season of Red Dwarf is very cool. This one is really good. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch it. It's a very short trailer. It's only a little less than a minute. It is, it's called The Promised Land, and it is about something that was started at the beginning of the series. It's about what happened to the rest of the cat people related to Lister's evolved friend, Cat. So, Jaime, you may not obviously have had a chance to dip into Red Dwarf yet, but the idea is that this guy gets in trouble. He's on a mining ship in outer space. He gets in trouble for bringing his cat on board, so they put him into cryostasis as a punishment, but while he's in there, the entire crew gets killed in an accident, and the ship just keeps flying for 3 million years. And so it's 3 million years away from Earth, and when he wakes up, his entire rest of the crew is dead, but his cat was pregnant, and generationally has evolved over the course of time, and so now there's a person who is a descendant of the cats has evolved into a sentient race of people. And so we meet this one character, but obviously he wouldn't have been the only one, and so now we're going to circle back and find out what happened with the rest of the cat people.
But I do recall in the show references to the other cats.
He does reference them, yeah, but we never actually get to meet any of them.
You sure?
I don't think so. I don't know. I must admit, it's been a while since I sat down and rewatched the whole thing.
And there's so many permutations. It's like it's getting to be like Doctor Who in terms of how many, but it's always the same 4 actors. They don't regenerate, Jaime. So
and I saw the original Holly's in this too, which I thought was really funny too.
Oh yeah. So they brought him back.
Yeah. So anyways, it's coming on April the 9th to Dave, which is a British network. I don't know. I haven't been able to see if it's playing anywhere here in North America, but I can't imagine it will take very long to get to the on-demand world or anything like that. So yeah, really good. Looking forward to seeing how they bring all that back together.
I got a scoop.
A scoop, you say?
A scoop, yes. I'm scooping up some literature. No, apparently, or I guess, did we know this already? 7 of 9. There's a spin-off coming, reportedly. I just stumbled across this the other day. That, 7 of 9 character, everybody loves, her from Voyager, and also we're loving what she's doing and the kick-ass portrayal in Picard. They're talking about spinning off a series with Jerry Ryan in 7 of 9. So whether it's going to happen before Picard or after Picard, who knows? But that's what we have to look forward to. Yeah,
I hadn't seen this prior to you posting that.
Right.
There's apparently there's going to be like a trillion different Star Trek series, which is, I guess, good news. I think having now, and we'll certainly get into this in the main part of our show, sort of how it all plays out for 7 of 9. I do think there's a lot of ground to cover with that character. I guess the question is, the impression you're left with on Picard is that she's sort of part of that world now. So it'll be interesting to see how they spin that out.
Right. Okay. Next up,
Next up, and this is for the Americans because we normally have to pay for CBS All Access. So if you have been holding out and you have been holding out long enough where you also have not seen Star Trek Discovery's first 2 seasons, well, the fine folks over at CBS All Access via Sir Patrick Stewart are giving you a gift. So starting today, which was 2 days ago, through April 23rd, you can sign sign up and watch for free CBS All Access in the US with the code GIFT. You can end up
so
watching.
Does it not apply to Canada? Because I was talking to some friends today who don't have Crave, and they have to wait till tonight to watch it, like Thursday nights as we record. Can they not take advantage of this, I wonder?
Do you even have CBS All Access over there?
Yeah, we do. There's a Canadian version of it, and because you can't. I don't think we can we watch Discovery right now, Jonathan? I don't know if there's a service like maybe on Space, whatever Space has become CBS.
No, CTV Sci-Fi.
CTV Sci-Fi. Yeah, one of those Sci-Fi. I don't know if you can stream it on there, but
Discovery's still on Crave, right? But as far as like
yeah, but I mean that's what I'm saying. But people don't have Crave, right?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look at Rogers On Demand and see if it's on there. So off the top of my head,
but it is on Crave, though.
Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But yeah, I think because CTV owns the Sci-Fi Network and they also own Crave, Bell does, that is, the master company, it makes sense that they would keep it exclusive there.
Yeah, so I get a sort of limited Crave on my because of my Bell internet, right? So that's how I've been watching Star Trek Picard, because I get it as part of my internet package, right? Because my TV's not with Bell. Is your TV's with Rogers or Bell, John?
I'm with Rogers still.
And so you're paying for HBO separately, or
yeah,
or through Rogers?
So originally it was free; it was part of my package, and now it's just tacked on as a $20 a month fee on my bill, which is what everybody else pays.
And that gives you access to Crave, right?
Access to Crave with HBO Plus,
which is very strange because that makes my head hurt because you just said that Crave's owned by Bell.
Well, maybe call your service provider and find out.
I guess as long as money's I do get it. I get a version of it for free as part of my Bell 5 thing. Right?
Yeah, so you get the $10 version, right? Not the $20 version.
Yeah.
So that's the deal, I guess, is that if you have the package, you get the.
If only there was a way I could watch shows.
If only there was a way.
If only there was a way. All right. By the way, this moment right now, as we sit here on March 26th, exactly, not one day before, not one day after, is the 15th anniversary of the premiere of The Ninth Doctor.
Wow.
Christopher Eccleston became Doctor Who as they resurrected the series from BBC today. So today's the day. And that's cool. I mean, like, I watched Doctor Who when I was a kid, and it was, it was an acquired taste, the older Doctor Who, and it kind of went away off of, I don't know if it went away or I just stopped watching it because it kind of got weird after the All Creatures Great and Small, Peter Davidson became the Doctor. I didn't watch the last, I think it was 2 or maybe 3 more Doctors after that. I mean, life might have gotten in the way too, right? But and then this version came back with Billie Piper and Christopher Eccleston, and it kind of started it off again. And I think you didn't watch this series at first, right, Jonathan?
No, you had sort of stumbled into it first and said you enjoyed it, so I followed suit. It wasn't really on my radar because my only recollections of Doctor Who were, as you say, not exactly a high caliber of Doctor Who. I had a few friends who were British who were big fans, and they were like, "Oh, you got to watch this!" And I, well, of course, like most of us, watched it on PBS and was like, "This is not good sci-fi."
Yeah. Imagine, if you will, Jaime, Harry Potter with really bad video effects and green screens. That's kind of what Doctor Who was back in the day. Like
how far are we talking? Because when I've seen the stuff that you guys are showing me, I'm like, it's like, what if Star Trek, but with original series, but with somehow even less budget? Like they aspired to be.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing. Yeah. Hollywood had something. It's funny. I was watching an episode of the original series the other day. I forget which one it was, but the technical dialogue was so campy. Like I used to be, when I was a kid, I was really impressed, and I think everybody was impressed with the sort of science that was in there. But in retrospect, it was pretty corny kind of dialogue that they were throwing in there, right? So kind of how you and I feel about hackers and when they portray hackers and developers on TV and in movies, Mm-hmm. You kind of look at them and you just cringe. Like, I don't know about you, but every time I watch Jurassic Park and that little girl goes, "Oh, this is Unix. I know Unix," and she's clearly looking at a 3-dimensional GUI, right? That's not Unix. Yeah, Unix don't have no GUI initially, right? Anyway,
prior to jumping into Series 11 with Jodie Whittaker, if you'd asked me on the street, 5-10 years ago, and I'm probably horribly wrong on these dates, don't hold me to them. If you'd said, hey, what does Doctor Who look like? I'd say, oh, it's David Tennant, or possibly Matt Smith, is around the time that I started becoming aware of Doctor Who.
Yeah. So Christopher Eccleston only played him for a year, maybe two? Not very long,
one season.
One season, yeah. And he kind of was like done with it by the time it was done. I think they were done with him too, but his portrayal is very... I'm not a huge fan of his portrayal. I mean, I watched the shows. I liked Billy Piper, but I wasn't a huge show of his portrayal. I mean, David Tennant was a lot easier to take,
Yeah.
by far. And I think he did it for 4 years, and then Matt Smith for 4 years, right?
Eccleston was playing it a little close to the vest. He was a little too serious, and I think also, in his defense, I think they were still finding their footing with what they wanted the show to be too. So it was not quite perfect in that way.
Well, I think it was a different showrunner too, because I think David Moffat joined when David Tennant joined, right? I don't think Moffat was involved. I mean, Whovians can yell at me and throw TARDISes at me, but that's what I remember. Yeah. Of course, we'll follow up for next week and fact check it.
Speaking of real-time follow-up, I just checked, and there is no Discovery on Rogers On Demand, so I don't know if there's anything similar on Bell, but it's certainly not available here.
So that's what I was sort of saying. Like, if CBS All Access is going to give Canadians a free month, I mean, it sounds like something they're doing just for the whole COVID-19 thing as well, right? Since they've got a captive audience, as it were. I wonder if they give it away, but you have to give them a Visa card number in case you forget to cancel it after the end of the month.
I think it's like that. Yeah, it's kind of like Apple TV Plus will. You start charging you after the free year is up.
Mm-hmm. Right. You can cancel anytime you like. You just got to remember to cancel. Alrighty. Speaking of free stuff.
Yeah, this was breaking news to me as I was going to go eat my dinner. I get this email from YouTube TV, and it's like, hey, guess what? You're getting Epix, EPIX, for free for the next 30 days on your YouTube TV subscription.
So what is Epix?
Epix, I was wondering that myself, and I said, I think they do movies like Stars or Showtime, HBO, but apparently they also have some original content as well, like a series called Pennyworth, which apparently is a younger Alfred Pennyworth, the butler of Bruce Wayne, Batman.
Yeah, that was on TV here.
Yeah, they rebroadcast that here on one of our cable channels.
Yeah, it's a British show, right? Is it British?
I think it's set in Britain because Pennyworth is.
Yes. Yeah, I watched pretty much all of it. It's interesting, Pennyworth. Definitely worth watching, but I stopped watching, what was the other, Gotham? Is that the one that they did?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I stopped watching that one about 2 seasons in or so. But this was worthwhile watching, and kind of it's the origin story of Alfred, right? But a bit strange, when you can. I mean, a bit strange when you plug in this character into who Alfred is from Batman as we know him, right? And I'm talking about the original 1966 Batman. Anyway, all right, it's that time, folks, where we have arrived. It is time for us to break down Star Trek Picard. In fact, we're going to break down the entire series, so just sit tight, strap in. But this one is covering Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 10, the big finale, Et in Arcadia Ergo Part 2. Take it away, Jaime Lopez Jr.
Yeah, so we start right off with Narek finding the Borg cube. So
okay, wait, you have to read the captions as you go through this, because they're funnier than you describe.
So this one's pretty straightforward. This one is just Narek finds the Borg cube. And we also see Elnor and 7 of 9 discussing the XB life and like, is it even worth it? Everybody sort of hates you.
Life, yeah.
Should you just take a phaser to your head and end it? And Elnor's like, no, I'd miss you, right? In his extreme candor sort of way. Narissa, who's been hiding out after beaming out to places unknown in the previous episode when she got, was it previous episode? It was one of the episodes when she got overwhelmed.
Couple episodes, yeah.
2 episodes ago, possibly, when she got overwhelmed by the XBs. Apparently she found
I thought she was beaming out to like one of the ships, right?
I thought so too, but apparently she just found another place to hide within the cube. Scooby-Doo style, she pulled a candle somewhere and went behind the door.
I thought that too. I thought that when she beamed on one of the ships, not elsewhere on the cube.
I mean, I was so happy when she got attacked by the Borg and they had overcome her, right? And she was down on the ground, right? I guess she had like an escape bracelet on or something. Or what are those hologram? What's the thing that the Doctor used to wear in Voyager with the
mobile emitter?
Mobile emitter, yeah. Sort of were like, those tracking things that they put on them, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we saw in Star Trek Nemesis the portable transporter thing
right, yeah.
that got, the Data sacrifices himself by giving it to Picard to get him off the scimitar. So I just sort of mentally said, oh, maybe it's super common. You buy them at Walmart in a pack of 10 and you hand them out to your friends and family. Let's see, where was I? So Narissa finds Narek, and we also end up seeing that Soji has come to talk with Picard and Dr. Jurati, and Picard's really pleading for Soji, like, you got to stop the construction of this beacon, right? You can't turn into what the Romulans feared you were going to become. You have a choice. You don't need to do this. And she's like, she's fully bought into this idea of synth life. It's like, hey, you're just going to try to wipe us out anyways, so maybe we should stop that first. And we switch around to Narek and Narissa talking more, and Narek's like, look, like I accomplished this task, right? Like, here I am, the Zhat Vash washout, and I've done a pretty good thing. I've killed one. He claims he's killed a synth.
She says, have you slept with any of the synths yet?
Yeah. That's right. He's like, no, I've killed one, and I found the whole nest here. So my methods work, much as you didn't like them. Next thing I had written here is that Rios and Raffi are trying to repair the ship. So the intermix chamber on the La Sirena is damaged, which means that the engine power is not going to work, which means everything else that requires that engine power, such as the what do you call it, like the mechanical replicator, the industrial technical, like a toolkit that'll make stuff for his ship to work.
So I do have a question though, okay? Because they do solve the problem obviously, but what year is this?
Just shy of 2400, 2399.
So we're 2400. We're that many. We're like 400 years in the future from now, right? Or 300 years or whatever.
Yeah, give or take 400 years. Yeah.
Why would they build a ship with a single point of failure?
Everybody's going to cut corners, dude. Like, let me tell you the story of my 1993 Saturn SC2, which at some point the air conditioner stopped working. Right? I was like, no big deal. Yeah. It's not that hot.
No big deal. Roll down the window. So big deal. Yeah.
Right. And then this grinding noise started to happen. I was like, that's not good. What's going on there? So I took it to a mechanic. They're like, yep, you need a new compressor. Your compressor's gone. I was like, all right, well, guess I'll get that done some other day. I don't really have the time. And they're like, no. This is on the serpentine belt. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. Well, the serpentine belt powers basically everything in that model of car.
Yeah, right.
And the compressor, if it's not turning, which is what the grinding thing was doing, if that doesn't turn, then it will eventually put so much wear and tear on the belt that I will just lose power randomly. I just will not be able to drive because the air conditioner is busted.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, but you're talking about an automobile, like the worst case scenarios, you get out and you walk, or you stick your thumb out and you thumb, or you get on a bus, right? Like, we're talking about a starship that goes between one planet and the next, like everything should be redundant and backed up. Anyway, so
I bet Tesla charges you more for the dual intermix chamber model.
Wow, yeah, they should have had a backup for sure, right? So anyway, carry on.
So they need to repair the ship. All they have is the magic ocarina of time to help them. Yeah, and
I called it the Green Lantern ring.
Yeah, it's like a weird brass knuckles.
It's the Green Lantern brass knuckles. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they're like, well, you need to think happy thoughts, right? If you imagine what the repair would be like, then this thing will do it, and it does it in a weird, like, little tendrils come out and start doing the repairs, which is kind of interesting. I didn't expect it to do that. Where are we? We switch scenes over to Dr. Sung and Dr. Jurati discussing the consciousness transferal, and Maddox having done a lot of work towards that. And I guess that's all that happens. Wow, they switch back and forth. These notes are so hard to keep up with. Because I was going to continue on to the next part, but that doesn't happen till later.
Yeah, so Sung basically says to Agnes, it's such a noble self-sacrifice that you're willing to make, knowing that the synths they're calling in these other synthetic beings, and they're going to wipe out all of organic life, and you're going to transfer my mind into this golem, and it's so noble what you're doing. And I guess that's the kind of sacrifice that a mother would make, which is really insulting and condescending and sexist. And Agnes sort of mutters under her breath, I'm not their mother, a-hole. And it sort of sets the scene for the fact that in spite of the fact that it, obviously was a little red herring-y at the end of the last episode when she sort of turns coat on Picard, but she was really just doing it to get inside, right?
Interesting. Yeah,
indeed. We switch again to Narek has made his way over to the La Sirena, and he's throwing rocks at the windows, and they have a cute little scene there where they're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I wanted to see what a photon torpedo would do at this range. Just blow you the hell up. What are you doing to my ship? But he's like, hey, look, we should team up here because these synths, they're building that beacon and bad things are going to happen, whether you agree with me or not.
How did Rios and Raffi know that he was the Vulcan guy that they were chasing?
The Romulan dude?
I think they extrapolated that he was the only Romulan on the planet other than Elnor, right?
Sorry, Romulan, yeah, sorry. Apologies to Vulcans.
Yeah, I think they extrapolated that since he was standing there and he was the only Romulan that they knew of outside of Elnor.
Because they had already left the conclave when the gathering of synths or whatever. So they weren't aware of all the stuff that had gone down, unless maybe JL called her and told her gave her an update or whatever. Right?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to assume too that Soji identified that if they're being followed, it was probably him, right?
Oh, okay.
And in the Snakehead vessel, and they knew they had interacted with the Snakehead vessel, so I think at some point Soji must have said to them, "Hey, that's probably Narek."
Okay, right. I mean, they must have cut that scene. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. It's probably an extraneous scene you didn't need at some point for somebody for a close up of Soji during the fight when he's attacking them, saying, "Oh my God, it must be Narek." Like,
oh, and by the way,
who I slept with accidentally. And let me give you more backstory.
Yeah,
I did like the line about in this scene too about I've got a bag full of grenades and I'm throwing rocks.
Yeah, it could be throwing the grenades exactly.
So they decide to try communicating with Picard, but he's not. Believe it or not, he's not at home because, as we know, once the group separated, he actually ended up getting arrested by the synths. Mm-hmm. And I really missed a gap here while so much was happening. I guess Elnor must have met up with them, or they met up with Elnor and company. Because Elnor was very unhappy to see Narek.
Yeah, there's a scene. It happens very quickly at the very beginning when you see Narek is leaving the cube through the same portal we've seen people come and go in. He walks out the door, and then you see Elnor very quickly slip out the door after him. It was only on for 4 or 5 seconds on the screen, right at the beginning of the episode when Narek loads up his bag full of grenades and leaves. We see Elnor follow him out the door. So I think the idea is that he's been tracking him.
Okay, yeah, okay. My memory was really poor. I'm like, wait, did he end up at the cube and in forgetting, or maybe I just didn't see because I was eating lunch at the same time. Face down in my salad and sandwich. Maybe I didn't see Elnor slip out. So the next thing is Dr. Jurati is talking to Dr. Soong about stuff that's happened. While he is in the. We'd asked this last time, like, how come they didn't look at the synth's memory? And it turns out it's not as easy as just making a time machine backup or a carbon copy cloner kind of thing. Like, it actually has some effort to it to extract it. And she's telling him, hey, Maddox has all this encrypted stuff that will probably be helpful. And I know your encryption foo is really good. So can you go check that out? And
and we get that really weird spot where she sort of walks over and you see Saga lying on the table, the dead synth. And then you just cut to Agnes's face and hear this horrible squelching noise.
Right, yeah. I kind of know what she's doing, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I had an idea what she was doing, but it was still, whoever did the Foley noises for that was having a good time because that was really gross.
Yeah, she went the Minority Report route of that. That'll become important in a few minutes here, but we switch over to the other part of the crew of La Sirena. They've made a little campfire, and Elnor is clearly not cool with Narek and his plan. He doesn't trust him. Narek takes this opportunity to tell the others about the Gamadan story, and I'm sure there's a lot of detail, and the name is really hard to spell, and I didn't pause it to get it from the captions, but it really boils down to the Romulans having this mythology around these twin demons that open the gateway to bad stuff. Like, choose many other similarities. They're causing Ragnarok from Norse mythology. They're opening Pandora's box. You can see patterns, or at least that's what I saw there.
Yeah, the biblical end of days. Yeah.
Yeah. It ends up feeling very similar to that. And that's where they talk about, the twins and the destroyers, right? The Sheb Cheneb, and I forgot what the other one was called.
Yeah, it was another Seb
name, yeah.
Yeah. The crack in the sky thing is something that's very clearly mentioned, which I think later on we'll see is, part of the whole beacon thing. But to my mind, I immediately thought of the intro sequence to Star Trek Picard, where you see the sky and a little crack opens up and a piece sort of flies around, that it ends up ultimately becoming, filling a hole in Picard's face. Mm-hmm. So I want to go take a look at the intro sequence again, knowing everything that we know after the end of this season.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we end up smash kitting over to Commodore O, or General what's her name? I don't know if we know her official name.
So I did catch that. I have my closed captioning on, and I did catch that they referred to her in the closed captioning as Nedar, Nedar. And then later on, they referred to her as General, but they don't mention her name. So I don't know if that was something that was just written into the captioning script, or how they capture that, because it's never mentioned by name. But in that first reference, when we see her on the bridge, it says Nedar, Nedar, and then what she says. So
okay, got it.
But strange that they wouldn't name her at any point if they did that. And even later on, there is a point where somebody references, Commodore O, or whatever the hell your name is.
Yeah, Riker says it.
Yeah, spoilers.
Han Solo says it.
Spoilers for 15 minutes for now. And then I wrote here that the crew of La Sirena is like, all right, how are we going to use this bag of bombs that Narek has brought? How are we going to destroy that beacon? Because the synths, they have everything locked down. We're not going to be able to take in weapons. We're not going to be able to beam in because they've got shields and transporter scramblers and stuff. They ultimately decide to do the Chewbacca method from Star Wars A New Hope, where they're like, hey, what if we take the guy that they want? Actually, now that I think about it, it was used in Star Wars A New Hope and Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. The Chewbacca method is reused multiple times, folks. The basic idea of you have a prisoner that you end up taking somewhere as a way to get what you want. In this case, the
Chewbacca method.
Yeah, the synths want Narek, very similar to the way that, on the Death Star in A New Hope, they were going to use Chewbacca as like, oh, I'm transporting this prisoner, please let us through. And in Return of the Jedi, hey, Jabba, we've captured Chewbacca. Please give us money. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. Well, they did the same thing with 7 as well, right? Earlier.
Yeah, that's right. This season they did it with 7. When they go see the bar owner who's keeping Maddox, right? They use 7 as their gateway, using the Chewbacca method. Yeah,
or Miss Of 9, I like to call her.
With I can't even say her Bejazel. I can't even say her real name. The internet has corrupted me. Well, maybe we'll leave that for the after show, because if anybody knows how I made that mistake,
I do.
It will not be safe for your children's. So they have this like Ocean's 11 style plot where they're like, all right, here are these different ways that we're going to sneak things in, and it really boils down to Rios leaning super heavily into his cultural heritage and like hiding the bomb inside of a soccer ball as the way for the synths to not be suspicious of what's going on.
Do you play?
Do you play?
Yeah, the synths is kind of cute that they actually know what that is. They're aware of the game.
Yeah.
So we cut over to Dr. Girardi, who has used whatever that dead synth's name was. I apologize. The one whose eye was stabbed out.
Saga.
Thank you. Using her eyeball as a way to get past the retinal scanner and go in and free Picard. And it's kind of weird because they go in. She goes in. She's like, hey, is he dead? He's like, I'm still alive. Just taking a nap. Just an old man taking a nap. It's really not cool for you to assume I'm dead. And, Soong, who has finished copying over the information he needed, and I don't remember what he said, decoding it, let's say, for a generic term. He sees the truth of how Sutra was the one who actually ended up helping free Narek and killed Saga, right? So now he's switching teams like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not good. I can't believe this is what's happening here. So whereas he was kind of, in my mind, like sort of anti-organics, because it was like, hey, look at these terrible tell people. No, he's like, maybe I was a little hasty in switching. So I wrote down here that everyone was kung fu fighting because somewhere around this time you end up having I might have mixed it up
seven. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody sort of pairs off, right?
Indeed. So they've got the fight going on. If like the crowd that's distracting things to try to get closer to the beacon so they can get that bomb deployed. Picard and Girardi have gotten over to La Sirena, and Picard's like, all right, let me see if I was paying attention enough to what Rios was doing to see if I can use this holographic tech to fly the ship. And he drives okay-ish.
Yeah.
You know, it's not quite so smooth. It's kind of janky, but it gets the job done. Somewhere in here, Sung had tased. Does he tase already?
No, that comes up a little bit.
Okay, yeah, they switch around so much that it's hard for I start remembering these in longer sequences than they actually are.
Yeah, there's a good conversation that happens there between Girardi and Picard too, where he sort of says, he sees the synths as children who were raised badly, and mentions that they were raised by a pair of hermits in Maddox and Sung. So he wants to teach them the right way of doing it. He wants to show them, make them learn by example, right? So he's got this plan. He's gonna make them learn by example, and says that they finish that scene with the line I think you have in here, which is we get a classic line from Next Generation said by Girardi, "Make it so," right. And then we cut back to that's when it all starts blowing up back at the city where Sung stuns Arcana and says, because he realizes, he confronts her and says, I can't believe you did this, and then he zaps her and she passes out. And then Elnor and Narek attack the synths, and Rios is standing off to the side holding his soccer ball, waiting for his chance to shoot at the goal, right?
Right. That's true. Okay, now it's making sense. So things are looking bad because Soji was able to stop the bomb and just fling it into the air rather than letting it get to the panel and destroy things for the beacon. We're on the cube where Narissa and Seven end up having a fight there after confronting each other. Similarly, we have the Romulan fleet arrives and pew pew pews the Orchids. So that's sort of going on in orbit.
Here's another part I'm confused about. So Picard and Girardi are in La Sirena, and they're up in space facing up against these hordes of Romulan ships, right? They send up the Orchids. The Orchids bypass Picard and Girardi and go after I just want to point out, that seemed kind of weird. Why, if Girardi and Picard are escaped captives of the people of the synths, and they're on this ship, which is, not even a Federation ship, how did they manage to, escape the voracious Orchids? Can
I just throw in there, you're trying to establish logic in a, giant flying flowers?
Same reason as the earlier question. I I sat here and I went, why are they not? Okay, never mind. Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends how it works, right? It's unclear, these Orchids, are they directly controlled? Is there some master control system that specifically tells them what to do? Are they more sort of kind of dumb reactive things? So in that case,
if the La Sirena is flying. If you send your pit bull onto the front lawn, isn't it going to attack anything that's on the front lawn?
We don't know that they aren't intelligent flowers.
Yeah, and I think of them as being kind of like Venus flytraps, where even if there's nothing there, if you just sort of poke at the little whiskers that they have, they'll close up, right? Eventually it thinks that a little tasty treat is there. In this case, I didn't
see Picard use any evasive Orchid maneuver.
Well, it kind of depends on how their defense system works. Is it only for things attacking and not trying to prevent things from leaving?
Oh, maybe.
Right? So La Sirena is flying in the opposite direction. It's actually becoming less of a threat to them.
It's because they were wearing white hats instead of black hats, right?
Well, to be fair, the reason it went after them the first time was because they were engaged in the fight with the snakeheads. So they were shooting at each other. So maybe they perceived that as a threat, and they went after both of them. This time they weren't shooting, so maybe they weren't the threat. Although the Romulans weren't shooting until they showed up. So again, maybe they're set to attack things that are shooting at them. I don't know. Or
directional, right? Because
Again,
even if the La Sirena was
Pitbull and the front lawn. I'm sorry.
I mean, sometimes pit bulls do silly things. They'll be like super scared of something that they have no business being scared of, and be really angry at something they have no business being angry of. So that's how I fill in the gap in my head here.
I like Tim's pit bull on the front lawn theory. That's a good one.
So while the big pew 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 is happening with the Orchids and the Romulans, we see more of the fight with Seven and Nerissa, and in a full "This is Sparta" moment, Nerissa gets kicked off the edge of the catwalk into the abyss.
Can you do your best impression of "This is Sparta," but the line from the show? This is for Hugh.
This is for you. It's got too many words. It has one extra word.
You gotta squish together "for Hugh" into one word. This is
into Sparta. This is for you. But I guess, who knows? We didn't actually explicitly see her die, and when you don't see a body, and sometimes even when you do, who knows? Maybe she'll make an appearance in a future season, but for now, we assume
like
she's
the Emperor,
dead.
right? And never mind.
Yeah. We all log into Fortnite and see if Marissa's alive.
Like Darth Maul and never mind.
More pew 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 was going on. Cool stuff there. Girardi brings up like, hey, so what can we do here? Because the Orchids, they're going down, and after that, the Romulans are going to just obliterate the planet surface, just kill everything.
Sterilize, they say. Sterilize.
Yes, that's the word they say.
Great.
And she says, hey, can we do the Picard maneuver? He's like, well, okay, one, that wasn't the Enterprise, that was the Stargazer. It was a very long time ago.
Initially she says, you should do some fancy warlike maneuver, and they could call it the Picard maneuver. And then she says, wait a minute, there already is a Picard maneuver. That's already a thing.
Yeah. And he's like,
kind of important.
It was kind of different. It was a singular instance of this. There's hundreds of ships here. This isn't going to work.
Unless, of course, they happen to have a Green Lantern ring with them.
Or Knuckles.
Is this where the face things happened?
Yeah.
Is it prior to the offering his life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have put the face emoji sort of thing that Dr. Girardi shows, and Picard does, call down to the planet.
Now, if they had used Memoji instead of her face, I would totally believe that effect, right? That would have been much more funny.
So Picard offers his life for the synthetics. He's like, look, I'm gonna prove to you we're not all bad, and that you can, in fact, make a choice. Look, just be real clear here. Not all organic life is trying to kill you. I'm not trying to kill you, as an example. And this is where I wrote down that I called them the mermaids arrive. So they use that tech to do the ghost ships copies of the La Sirena to confuse the Romulans and make them think that there's an entire fleet that has just warped in. Very similar to the trick that Narek ended up using, right, to feign his weakness.
It's the Picard maneuver.
Yep.
Yeah, the new
2.0
Picard maneuver. Yeah. Unfortunately, the beacon is complete. Stuff's going to get the bad guy. I guess not necessarily the bad guys, but the super synths who left the admonition message. They're going to be able to get called here.
So can I just back up for just 1 second, because there was one line in here that just really stood out to me that I think we have to address. So they do the hundreds of La Sirena, and then the Romulans attack them thinking that they're real because they have warp signatures and they're real, and they hit the real one and sort of knocks them off course, and then the illusion disappears, right? And at that point they cut back to Commodore O, and she says, okay, it's time to destroy the planet. And she had originally used the term sterilization, but this time I swear it was just three or four different cuts of the same thing, where they had the actress playing Commodore O read different ways to say the same thing, because she says the same thing over and over again, like target them, and she says target the planet, sterilization pattern number 5.
Yes, which means they have 4 other patterns?
That was my exact thought, was like, how many different ways do you need to sterilize a planet that you are up to number 5?
Yeah. It's funny though, why would she use the term sterilize? Because sterilize means like stop reproduction, right?
Yeah.
Not eliminate or destroy or whatever.
It means make clean, right? Sterilize means make clean.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
So I think the idea is wiping it clean, making the planet clean of this infection. Exactly. But I as soon as she said number 5, I was like, there's 4 different ways to do this before they got to this one?
Yeah, you and I have seen too many movies together for sure. Yeah. By the way, the actress's name is Tamlyn Tomita, and she was from Karate Kid 2.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about her. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder if they mentioned a number, or if this happens to be the same pattern. If you remember when the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order in Deep Space Nine tried to go do the same thing, sterilize what they thought to be the Founder's homeworld.
Right. Yeah.
And they blasted the heck out of it, and then they're like, "Wait, there's still all this stuff that's alive. How is it possible?"
Don't they all live in buckets, though? Don't they all live in buckets, the Founders?
Well, they weren't on the planet anymore.
Yeah, they weren't on the planet. If they were,
I just remember Odo used to live in a bucket, right?
Yeah. But they also had the Great Link. It was like a big lake.
Right. Yes, the big ocean of them. Yes.
But they were using like sensor ghosts of some sort. So even after the Romulan and Cardassian fleet had obliterated the planet crust, I want to say, it would still appear as if there were a whole bunch of changeling life forms there. And it turned out it was just all an elaborate trap from the Dominion. The Jem'Hadar ended up blowing the heck out of that fleet. So my larger point was that also pattern 5, or was that one of the previous 4?
Well, maybe this is set in the future. Maybe that's why that one didn't work. So they had to move on to pattern number 2, 3, 4, and now 5 to make sure they got their sterilization techniques right.
Yeah, right, indeed.
They're trying to flatten the curve, right?
But before the Romulan fleet can do anything, finally, just in time, Starfleet arrives. And who's leading there but acting fleet captain Riker shows up in the Zhenghua, and it's really freaking cool that he arrives. He's like, "Look, I have a whole bunch of these ships. This is the best." I can't remember exactly what he says. Basically, this is the fastest, toughest, most powerful ship in the fleet.
Which
and I've got
Commodore
a whole bunch of them.
wouldn't know, because she was like Starfleet's top security person. She wouldn't know the stats of this. Anyway, I
would still remind anyways, like, hey, remember when you signed off on us having these badass weapons? Like, I'm turning them against you.
Yeah. As you know, yes.
Sure glad you told us we should put double the photon torpedo launchers on the front specifically for this reason.
Right.
You know, and I can't remember if this happens before or after, but I'm just going to put it in here. And we learned that the Treaty of Alderaan is still going on, right? It's still actually active, even though we've wondered with the fractured Romulan Star Empire and the Romulan Free State and sort of, loose cannons like the Tal Shiar and Zhat Vash with, what's going on. But apparently,
so when was that treaty from? Like, what lore of Star Trek was that from?
TNG, I think, is when they first mention it in reference to the Tomed incident, which has never been on the screen.
Yeah, so it was the agreement that ended the Earth, or the Federation Romulan War, right?
Right. Okay.
And it predates TNG.
What was that series with Leonard Nimoy and Picard? Was it called Resolution or?
Oh yeah, the Resurrection and yeah.
No, something. Yeah. Carry on. I'll look it up.
Series, or do you mean the 2-part episode Reunification?
Reunification. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, when Spock shows up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So we learned that there is actually, like, Starfleet, the Federation and the Romulans do actually have that treaty in place, which implies that Starfleet can't use cloaked ships, because it's sort of been a long time question in this series. And the Romulans were like, "Look, we lay claim to this planet that we found, right? We found it. We have decided we are going to blow it up." And Riker's like, no. This is actually...
We got a voicemail, yeah.
Yeah, we've got this voicemail here, this video voicemail from Picard, saying like that this is a first contact situation. So these
we found it first.
Yeah, they're under their protection.
Oh, so they play back that piece that Picard recorded earlier in the previous episode. Okay, yeah, because I kind of wondered how come his face is on the screen if he's like flipping through backwards.
Yeah, it was the message he sent out, but he never got the response, right? He didn't know that it was actually picked up.
Right.
Yeah. So we see a whole bunch of stuff
here. The Millennium Falcon, yeah.
Picard ends up having this, terrible, what I wrote here is a migraine, and it's sort of clear that the Irumodic syndrome or similar syndrome that he has is, taking its toll, and it's getting towards the end. And
she breaks out the retro tricorder again, right?
Which conveniently was right under the
seat.
He's
like, give me this drug, give me the chloroquine. She's like, that's bad. It's like it's only going to delay the inevitable. It's not going to be any worse. Like I'm dying, right? To sort of stabilize him. And Picard asked Soji directly, you need to make a choice. Look, Starfleet is here. Starfleet is not trying to kill you. They're trying to protect you from the Romulans who are trying to kill you. So therefore, not all organics are trying to end your life and your species. And from what the beacon is doing is it's making sort of the AI squids, right? To my eye, very similar to what we saw from the sort of future control from Discovery. You can look at the squid-like design from the Matrix.
Yep.
It sort of seems like if inevitably AI becomes squids, squid tentacles is like the ultimate
worms. Yeah, big snaky worms. Yeah.
Yeah. So she does make the choice, and she shuts off the beacon, which makes the squids not go away, not come through. I'm guessing they're like in like fluidic space equivalent, like species 8472 is how I sort of thought of that in my mind. And the Romulans are like, all right, there's nothing good that can happen here. We should run the hell away. So they do. They fly away, and Starfleet's like, all right, we're done here. Let's peace out. Other stuff to do. We got to deliver medical supplies somewhere. I'm sure deliver an admiral somewhere, and so we're left there with Picard is dying, and Soji sees this and lowers the shield and transporter scramblers and beams him and Shirati to the surface. And Picard has a very heartfelt goodbyes to all of his crew there, and he dies.
Called it.
Yeah. So there were a lot. We'll talk about the weird Reddit theories, I think, in the recap of the season. But I did feel like when they showed the golem that it was going to end up with Picard in there.
You predicted that already, John?
Well, we talked about it last week. I raised it with you guys. I said, do you think we're going to actually see Picard die in this series?
Well, I didn't think in this episode. I thought maybe next season, so they could end the season. Captains die and then they move on to other series, right? So
yeah, I thought they were going to shove that, possibly into like a drawer somewhere, and then in the second or third season, it's like, hey, we've got a new Doctor Who. Every time a Picard dies, we just shove out a new golem.
Right. But the thing about it, I mean, as soon as he started dying, I went, but they got that. Never mind. They already got the brain transferring, memory transferring theory, and they've got this, ready-made, fully formed, golem ready for somebody.
Yeah, right? They don't say this is a limited opportunity thing. It's funny because later on, and obviously we'll get more into this as we finish our recap, but they mentioned that, he sort of says, well, my gain is your loss to Sung, who ostensibly was going to be the one transferred into this golem, but they don't say anything about there being a limitation. Like, they can make more theoretically. Like, in a certain way, they've essentially just mastered human immortality. Yeah. So can't they do that with any character going forward?
Oh, we're going to end up talking about this. This is on my list. Yeah. It's not written here. All right, it's all let's talk about a recap.
Let's finish our episode recap, and we'll dig back into that, because that's a whole kettle of fish is what that is.
Yeah. I have several questions about this whole series. Yeah.
We're in the home stretch here, so we see Rios and Seven at sunset, and they're sort of dealing, drinking very bad alcohol. Apparently, what passes for alcohol for the Sins.
It looks like shampoo to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and they sort of talk about their takeaways from this whole thing. And Seven's is that shouldn't kill folks even if they deserve it. And Rios is like, don't let old Starfleet captains get you into shenanigans. Is what his boils down to. They just end up breaking your heart when they die. He's had that happen twice.
And that in practice your soccer shots, because you never know when they'll come in handy.
I know, right? He should have done some sweet bicycle kick is what I thought was going to end up happening. Raffi and Elnor have their own sort of little moment too, and it's kind of cute because she's a mother and she doesn't have her child, and Elnor is sort of like a surrogate child in a way to everybody, right? He's so innocent and he's very open about his pain. But we end up,
and he was raised by women too, so he naturally would be attracted to seeking comfort with her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense that would be where would you go for comfort? You tend to go back to your habits when you're in emotional distress. So that makes sense. That's a good point. And Picard wakes up in the Matrix. That's at least how I felt about it.
Yeah,
he's
or in Hogwarts Station, or any other analogy for people who wake up between life and death.
Yeah, and Picard is chatting with Data, and they discuss how it's possible is this quantum simulation here. And Picard's like, dude, am I dead? Yes, Captain, you are. And they talk about how how Data's information there and the source of the positronic neurons we've wondered about is, data information that was copied from B4 and the remnants that they had there. You got autocorrect messes up. The Soon Soup and Maddox chunks is what I'd intended to write there. Is how they made the secret recipe to do this. And, Picard heart Data. He definitely, they have this whole thing. He's like, dude, I felt really guilty that you traded your life for mine. And Data's like, well, I mean, that's almost kind of insulting. Like you wanted to trade mine for yours, and it doesn't make sense that you would feel this way. And really, mortality is what gives meaning to human life. I want you to end me, even though I could hypothetically be immortal.
Search for Spock.
Yeah, and actually, there is an old TNG episode.
There's a whole movie, Time's Arrow or something, specifically with Data, where they find his head or something, and it's like, yeah. Like, Data, you died. Like, how do you feel about that? He's like,
well, he says he finds it comforting, right?
Yeah, it's like, normally I could hypothetically live forever, and I'll see my friends grow old and die, and I'll make new friends, and they'll grow old and die. But there's something kind of fitting about having finiteness to your existence. And in many respects, as a little side note, it feels like this is the ultimate not goal, but the ultimate coda on what Data was trying to do, right? Data wanted to become human and struggled, his entire life to deal with that. And what is more human-like than passing away and die? Mm-hmm. So it totally made sense to me that he would have this desire as much as Picard.
Finite existence he talks about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It talks about, the butterfly that lasts forever isn't
really a butterfly.
Not a butterfly.
Yeah.
This also harkens back to McCoy having Spock's katra put inside in his head, and he can't deal with it at the beginning of Search for Spock. You remember? Mm-hmm.
Right.
He wants to get out. He wants to get it taken out.
Indeed. So what I have called Picard 1.1 patch release awakens as Picard walks out into the light from the quantum simulation, and it's the golem version of Picard. So Picard's mind has been transferred into the synthetic body, and as I wrote here, he has gone full Charles Xavier, which is interesting. If you follow the X-Men series movies at all, spoilers. He died. His body was obliterated by the Phoenix, and he had transferred his mind into a completely different body that was shown in the after credits. That's a thing that happened, folks, to the same actor.
Is that how they got the other actor to play after Patrick Stewart?
I don't remember how the continuity works. I don't believe so, because McAvoy was supposed to be a younger.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a prequel. Yeah, it's the prequel sequel thing. Yeah.
And they, around the breakfast table, they're telling Picard what happened here, right? So they made the golem look like him, so we would, be more comfortable to him than his normal body.
Wrinkles and all. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, it's like they didn't give him the bodybuilder build. They didn't give him like a Fabio with tons of hair.
24-year-old Picard. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the other things they made him mortal. He has a sell-by date that if he didn't have the Irumodic syndrome, how much longer would he last? 10 to 20 years, let's say, right? Because he's like 90. Because
he does say, "Did you make me immortal?" Exactly.
Right? What a missed opportunity! They could have had Tom Hardy play him in the second season.
I was going to say the same thing. He's not busy.
No, what's he doing?
And so they honor Data's wishes. Right, they start shutting down the quantum simulation, and what we see in the Matrix view is that Data is aging, and with an image, I guess, of a younger TNG era Picard. They have a final moment, and Data dies after aging. He's gone, dust in the wind.
As they're doing that, they're playing Blue Skies, which of course is where we started the season, and then also ties it all together. And I've put a link in the notes here that that version of the song is being sung by Isa Briones, who is the actress who plays Soji.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew that song had meaning from Nemesis, where he, I believe, sings it at the wedding of Riker and Troy.
Yep.
Let's see. So we end up seeing the La Sirena crew together again. I think just about everybody's on there. You have Seven on there. You have Rios. You have Girardi, who has completely avoided murder charges. And Elnor's on there. I think I mention that. We have Raffi. Raffi and Seven are holding hands, which some folks have interpreted as romantic. I didn't. I viewed it as being more, friends. I've seen friends comfort each other in that way. So I'm not saying that it couldn't be a possibility. I mean, if they do a 7 of 9 series as a Fenris Ranger with Bejazel, like I really totally felt like they had a romantic relationship, right?
It seems really implied, doesn't it? Yeah.
It seemed heavily implied with Bejazel. I don't really get that vibe with the Raffi thing. I think that was more
I guess that would explain why she's not with Chakotay anymore.
Exactly.
Or she didn't take Rios for a spin.
Yeah.
Or he didn't take her for a spin.
So
then they are 7, right? There's a full crew.
Yeah.
Full crew.
So now we've got Chekhov and Sulu in their rightful places.
Mm-hmm. And everybody's keyed up for season 2. They say,
we have a data.
And a funny line too, where Soji sort of says, well, no, thanks to you, I'm free to travel now. And he says, yeah, me too. Picard says, yeah, me too, because he's now a synthetic too, right?
Right. Yeah. After the synthetic ban.
Yeah. The synthetic ban was ended. Now that the whole, enormous implications that I'm sure will be discussed in season 2 of the Tal Shiar Zhat Vash doing stuff against both the Federation and the Romulan Star Empire. Mm-hmm. Right? That there was this plot.
So the Federation is several million light years away from where they are currently, and yet they make the decision to lift the ban of the synthetics?
I mean, well, it depends on how much time passes here, because it's kind of unclear. But Starfleet got the message, right, with their faster ships, and let's say Nepenthe is close enough for stuff to happen, and presumably enough info was passed to Riker of like, that head of Starfleet security was actually a Tal Shiar Romulan agent, and so
that's not a problem either, right?
Yeah, it's the attack on Mars too. If the whole conspiracy is exposed, and then wouldn't that mean that the Romulans orchestrated this massive terrorist attack, and therefore it's an act of war? Like
it's a tricky one, because it's kind of interesting, because Raffi is like a 9/11 truther, right? So for folks who don't know that, there are some folks in the United States and maybe elsewhere, but who believe that the United States government orchestrated the 9/11 attacks, and there are folks who actually believe this, and it sort of feels similar in that respect of like, well, what would happen here with the Romulans? I'm like, it seems like this one rogue agency decided to do this, and even ended up in the deaths of many Romulans. So it seems like a weird act of war to say, hey, like all Romulans are bad. It's like, well, it kind of feels like Section 31, who has gone rogue as well. What ends up happening there, it's a very messy and gray situation of like, well, what can we do? And I'm hoping they end up covering that to some degree in season 2.
Yeah,
but we got the ship, engage is said, and the ship takes off at warp, and cut to the credits. See you in season 2.
Yeah. So let's sort of circle back with it. I got a couple things about this episode, and then we can do our sort of overall impressions of the season. But strange that we never circle back to Arcana or Narek, or sort of a comeuppance or some sort of repercussion for their actions. We don't see.
It's Sutra that killed what's her name, isn't it?
I thought Arcana was the.
I thought Sutra was the gold
no, you're
one.
right. Yes, you are. Yes, you are right. That's right. You're right. It's Sutra. So we never get it. Like, so are we supposed to infer that when Soong presses the button that he deactivates her? Because that would be, I guess, a more fitting comeuppance for her actions, is that she is then deactivated for having.
Without a trial?
Brutally stabbed her friend in the eye. Because we don't see her from that point on. She gets turned off, and that's the end. Like, we don't see her again in the entire episode. So are we supposed to infer that she is no more?
Unclear, because in my notes, and autocorrect butchered this, and I didn't even notice it, I put that Soong had tased her, and it corrected to taxes her, which is not the intention there.
Yeah.
I assume it was very similar to Lore, where he's not dead per se, because he could come back.
Turned off.
Deactivated. Yeah. Shove her in a drawer somewhere. Maybe she'll come back in season 2.
And we don't get any closure on Narek either. The last time we see Narek is in that sort of fight scene where they're trying to sort of fight to deactivate the beacon. We don't really get any closure on him, which seems a little odd, given that he was featured pretty prominently in this series. And we don't get any... it's weird that, like, in the end, Seven goes with the crew and is, we're all together in this. what happens to the XBs and this huge Borg cube that is sitting in a pond on the Coppelius? Like,
right, yeah.
That's
where did Auntie Ramda go?
Well, I mean, yeah, like it's a very strange, sort of non-conclusion for sort of, maybe they'll circle back on that, but they're just like, well, peace out, folks. We're out of here. Maybe there is supposed to be a passage of time that they don't document where like they save all the XBs and send them on their merry way, and they have a trial for what was the character's name again? The golden version of Soji?
Sutra.
Sutra, that's right. They have a trial for her, and Narek is, they fix up his ship and he goes on his merry way, but none of that is documented. It seems like a bit of lack of closure on a few of those fronts.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so last episode, I had posited a completely different ending. I thought this was going to have a very hard cliffhanger ending, because very similar to Discovery at times, certainly the first season, and very much true for the second season, we're like, can they actually wrap it all up? And guess what? They said, hold my beer, I'm going to wrap this up. They did largely wrap up the main thrust of the story, but there are a lot of those loose connections that they didn't do. And I guess this is leading into my take on the season. I like the season, like the show. I do think that if I had some of the glaring problems to me are that it starts off a little slow, and it could have used like another episode or two if you're going to do that, or tighten up the beginning if you're going to hold it to 10, because it starts slow, goes super fast in the middle, and then is running at breakneck pace at the end. And this season also teased me a lot. Like, I was screaming so many times when like, oh my god, this cool thing is about to happen, and it doesn't actually happen, right? Like I feel a release that still is it needs to be there, when that's Seven becoming the Borg Queen, or the cube coming out of the transwarp conduit. When Starfleet arrived, I just assumed it'd be double the pew 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 going on,
So wasn't it, there was this, I was just thinking about that, because the scene where they're all facing off against each other, you got like all the Romulan ships and all the Federation ships, and they're facing each other, and Riker's threatening them with my bigger gun and stuff like that. But doesn't she say we're going to fight at some point, Commander O? Like, what? Did I miss something? Was there no pew pew between them?
No, I think she was posturing, and they didn't actually end up fighting.
So the squids showed up and they turned tail and ran?
Well, I think the idea was that when the squids showed up, they were prepared to destroy, like fight through the Starfleet ships to get to the kill the synths, so that they could try and stop this end of days event that they saw. But when Soji makes the decision to close it, she sees that as no longer a threat, that they've averted.
Was like, oh, okay, never mind. We were just,
I think it's her way of basically saying, like, this is what they thought was the end of the world, and now they think this is no longer the end of the world because they've averted it, because the synths changed their mind.
So they're giving up on, 20,000 years worth of mythology or something?
History, they would say. But yes, I guess that's the idea, right?
Yeah, at least the imminent threat is like, it's a lose-lose sort of thing, right?
That's true. Those Romulans are so logical. That's true. I keep forgetting that.
No, it's more like, well, okay, so we have to fight the AI stuff and the synths while getting pummeled by Starfleet. If the imminent danger is over, maybe it's better just turn tail and run, and then let's see if we can go blow this place up later, right? Like, there's always another plan for the Romulans.
Right.
So they're not, die in glory like the Klingons.
Yeah, and they've also showed their hand, too, because when Riker recognizes Commander O as the top security officer or leader of the Star Trek security, Federation security, right? She's kind of like exposed herself as was it Tal Shiar, right? Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like you said, a lot of hold my beer, wrap this up kind of stuff happened in this episode for sure, right?
Yeah, I think this story of the season was an old man talking about Picard had lost his way, had lost his purpose in life, and was just waiting to die, and he ended up finding his purpose and gaining that vigor. But
for a second there, when he says, "Oh no, not another dream," for a second there, I thought the entire season was a dream.
You were pitching that hard. You thought that was the series as we go.
Well,
right?
It's, I mean, he is an old guy, and we're looking at it from his point of view, right? So who knows? knows? I mean, like a lot of this could have been all happening in his head, right? So for all we know,
that has happened before. Like they could have gone the Rogue One Grand Moff Tarkin route, and it turns out, it's Tamalak. This was a Romulan plot the entire time to see in this simulation what would you do if the Federation and the Romulans did this, right? That was not unreasonable. That has happened before in Star Trek. But in any case, Picard, old man, lost his way, regained his purpose in life, and ultimately his body ended up failing him as he ended up sacrificing himself, and yet he still lives in a not uncommon for Trek, right? Spock is certainly one way that comes to mind. Harry Kim and Naomi Wildman are also not themselves. O'Brien's future self killed his past self in some weird way, so he's not even the same person.
Right.
This is just Tuesday in the Star Trek universe. It's not even the top 10 weirdest things that have ever happened to the characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I think maybe you guys want to talk about have they done immortality, because this is not even top 10 way they've done it, right? So you could keep yourself in the transporter buffer forever, like Scotty was doing. You could do remember when Pulaski became really old and they de-aged her? Why don't they do that for Picard, right? Or remember when they became kids and they re-aged them to older? Recreate that problem.
Put them in the transporter, right? Yeah, I mean, plus we've got the Irishman technology now, right? I haven't seen the movie yet, but where they basically took these actors and who are all in their 70s and 80s and stuff, and made them look like they were in their 40s and 50s, right? Because immediately, as soon as they brought Picard back, or they were going to bring Picard back, I'm like, why does he have to be wrinkled and old, and why does he have to be why isn't what's his name playing him, or a younger person? Why couldn't James McElroy play him?
Yeah.
And Patrick Stewart could still collect the executive producer money, right, and not have to get out of bed and whatever. But I mean, and the same problem I have with Data. I'm sorry, Data did not look like a 50-year-old man when they ended the last movie, right? He's got that middle-aged weight in his face, which we all end up having, right?
Yeah.
If we have the technology to recreate, make a new body for somebody, then great. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the episode. I was thinking about this the other day. Twilight Zone. There's an episode where an old man and an old woman have saved all their lives, and they're going to this place, and they're looking at these gorgeous men. Like I was thinking of Lyle Wagner, actually. That kind of 60s build. Strong man. Inverted triangle kind of body. Broad shoulders, barrel chested, as you said last week, and they're looking at women who are gorgeous, young, 20-year-old women with all the right curves in all the right places, and so the plan is that they've got the money to basically have themselves transferred into these younger bodies and continue to live their life, right? So they didn't just get their current body fixed up; they would get themselves moved into the other thing. And of course, because it's the Twilight Zone, we find out at the end of the episode that the man has sacrificed himself for the wife because they only had enough money for one transfer, right?
Right.
So she ends up living and he ends up, being old and died or whatever. But again, we have the technology. Why are we? I mean, I admittedly, yes, it's Patrick Stewart and he has to carry on into season 2 and all that kind of stuff. But if they really want to play on this angle of the guy died and now we put him back and transferred his body into a younger person, like if Soon had, I don't know what Soon's first name is, but if he had gone through with the transfer into the Golem himself, would he have left himself as an old guy, or would he have just made himself like a 35-year-old dude, or 20-year-old dude for all that matter, right?
Yeah. His first name was Altman, by the way.
Altman Inigo AI Soon.
Yeah. So I mean, because they have all this fancy tech. I mean, if you look at all of the synths that they show in the show, they're all in their 20s, and they're all young people, right? So why would they make an old man a synth, right?
Yeah, I guess it also prevents this seems like it's unprecedented as far as this technology goes. I think they didn't want to bring him back and have his brain go into catatonia because they couldn't handle the fact that he was completely different, right?
Yeah. I mean, he could have carried on with that neuromotic syndrome into season season 2 and season 3, because now it's no longer a factor. It's no longer his weakness. It's no longer his kryptonite, right?
Well, and it's funny, on a show that was sort of fixated around the idea of mortality and how mortality defines one's life, it's funny to have removed that from him, which is something that has obviously been part of his life for a long time.
And they've also taken out the Jason Bourne chip too, right? Because he's not going to be able to leap into action and start running like a madman, and
Yeah, which is probably for the best. So overall, I mean, do you guys, are you happy with this? If this is our first return in 20 plus years to this part of the Star Trek universe, are you happy with where we sort of began and ended? And are you surprised that they wrapped it up in a bow?
No, I'm not. But I mean, it's good Star Trek, right? Mm-hmm. It's not. I really do. I mean, I love the character. I love 7 of 9. I could watch them no matter what show they're in. Like I love these 2 particular characters in Data as well, right? Or anything that Brent Spiner plays. But and Riker, he's funny, and that kind of stuff. And I like the fact that they did employ these characters in the show, right? But yeah, overall I didn't find it a great series. It's a little, in some ways, better than Discovery for sure. But
is it, or is it just more because of the nostalgia? Like, I don't know that it is a better.
It's a tough one.
I don't know that it's a better series than the second series of Discovery for sure.
Yeah,
I think maybe it's just that we love these characters so much. I don't know that it's necessarily better written.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that it took 3 episodes to get off the ground.
Yep.
Right. They kind of wasted 3 episodes there, and this sort of this has almost had that. I've always complained about what is it? What's the third prequel of Star Wars?
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, the last hour, last 20 minutes of the Revenge of the Sith. I swear, George Lucas is standing with a checkboard saying, "Okay, we got to check off all of these things before the movie ends." Right?
Yeah.
Because it all happens at breakneck pace at the end of the movie. I mean, it's kind of sort of like that in terms of the way this episode resolved itself. Right? He dies. Oh, it's okay. He died because we all 3 of us, I think, knew they were going to bring him back. Right?
Of course.
Because we already know they'd signed on for season 2. There's no surprise there, right? It's funny. A friend of mine was saying, I was just talking to him just before the show, and he's like, "I got to go watch Picard." I said, "Spoilers. He doesn't make it all the way through." He's like, "Oh no, don't tell me that."
Yeah, I agree. It's hard, and it will take a while to figure out where this fits. Right now, things are raw. I do suspect it is good, but not great Trek, and it's certainly not bad. I just want to be very clear when I'm criticizing it. Very similar to Discovery criticisms. It comes from a place of love, and I'm not joining the crew like, "Oh, I can't believe they stomped all over my childhood." I'm not doing that. I'm like, is this great? Is this as great as some of the best that we've seen? I don't think it is, but I do think it's good. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of like a James Bond movie in that sense. You're going to watch a James Bond movie because you like the character, right?
Yeah, it's definitely well done from that perspective. I do think that CBS really does need to figure out how to plot out and pace all of these things so that it works sort of seamlessly. If you're going to hold yourself to 10 episodes, you better
make them count.
Speed things up where you need to speed up, and you need to slow things down where you need to slow them down, right? You can't have it be, all right, we've got room. Oh, crap. I need to finish up this essay, finish it up. And in conclusion, in one paragraph. It's a common problem. Disco had that for both of its seasons. Mm-hmm. Picard suffers just to a lesser degree, funnily enough, I think, but still ends up having it. So hopefully they'll learn from that.
Yeah. It does feel like this would have been, if there was going to be no season, if this was the denouement, if this was the end of all of Picard's adventures for us, I suppose this would have been a satisfying thing. I think I agree with you that it was, it's strange considering that this was, we know there's going to be season 2. It did feel really hurried, and it did feel really like, you're right, it was kind of like a checklist at the end where it was just like, oh, and Riker's back, and 7 gets her conclusion to her story, and like it just felt like it was a little too neat in that way. If this was going to end as, this was the last of, Picard, this was the last of Data, this was the last, we sort of said goodbye to all these characters, I think that would have been different, but it does feel a little bit too neatly tied for something that is now an ongoing series.
Yeah. And, I don't know if they will step away at all from the highly serialized style. I would suggest that if they're not going to be really strict on plotting things out so you don't have weird lulls and you don't have hyper rush at the end, I wouldn't mind seeing them just step off the pedal a little bit and say, if we went with like seasons 5, 6, and 7 of Deep Space Nine, where you do, especially during the Dominion War stuff, you do have a very heavy story arc that, you have to watch it in sequence for it to like really make sense. But you do have time to have individual episodes that aren't directly related to the war, but sometimes they give you nuggets of flavor, or, I didn't realize that was important. That was like a B plot of that other episode, and it's totally becoming important here. I think that can work where, you have this goal that you're trying to get to, and you can hit the waypoints on the way, but you have a little bit of room to do something different, so that if, episode 5 was a little weird and slow, but at least it told us this important thing, and then by the tail end, that was the key to saving the day, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I think that could still work. Well, this season is like one 10-hour, or however many hours it is, like one 10-hour movie, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say, would this have worked as a movie? Because if you look at the beginning, the prequel or the recap that they did at the beginning of the episode, it recapped the entire season, right? Like it had, it didn't hit all the high points, but it hit most of the story points that if you had not seen, they reminded us of all the sort of things that had happened. I think part of the problem is that, as Star Wars and Star Trek fans, we kind of want it to be Game of Thrones, but it's never going to be, like in that sense, like a Game of Thrones was like, it was epic, right? And I think we kind of expect this stuff to be epic, and this season just wasn't. I mean, it was interesting. It was, it was a good story point in the career of Jean-Luc Picard. I mean, it was better than any one single episode of well, I mean, maybe stretching it, but better than most of the episodes of the Next Generation, in my opinion.
I disagree.
Because of the time and whatever, but it wasn't, the writing wasn't superior. I mean, there were some really amazing time loop, time tunnel, time vortex episodes in the Next Generation, which I really enjoyed, right? I always enjoy those kind of things. And they didn't hit any of those kind of points. And I think they could have gone a lot more. They could have done a lot more with this whole idea of synths. I mean, they spent 7 years working on Data, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't think he grew we grew with him, he was kind of an anomaly in the first episodes of the Next Generation, but over time, he had a cat, he had a kid, he found his head in the sand, and, he met Mark Twain and all that kind of stuff, right? That was fun stuff. But that, those story points, Star Trek, The Next Generation didn't have really a sort of it ended up having a full arc when they brought Q back at the end,
It did, but also it had through lines for, I think, each of the characters, not all of them, but I mean, Worf certainly had a very strong through line through the story.
Yeah. And he continued into Deep Space Nine.
Exactly. For me, I think he was the sort of underrated character. Picard certainly had one. Riker, I think, had a little bit of one. There was definitely one for Data. Troy certainly had one where she sort of went from this sort of, ingenue, your entertainment director aboard the Starship Love Boat, to being this, like, wearing the uniform, passing her command tests, everything else. So there was certainly
doesn't she fly the Enterprise into the ground at one point?
She was at the helm, if I'm not mistaken, in Generations when the saucer section is
right.
When, the star drive section is blown up,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, again, lots of evolution for the different characters over time. I still think obviously Data and Worf were two of the standout characters next to Picard. I think there's a good case to be made. I'd almost rather have seen an entire Worf series out of this. If they're going to go into the future of this world, I would have liked to have seen how that goes. But it's funny. I was thinking about the idea of this being sort of one 10-hour story. To me, the number one standout episode of Discovery so far after 2 seasons is the bottle episode that they did. It's the episode where Harry Mudd is using the time thing, where he's popping in and screwing with the timeline on the ship, and they have to keep doing this thing over and over again. He keeps killing the captain, right? Do you remember that episode?
That was Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, or some similar name for the title. Yeah, that was a really cool episode.
That was a very cool episode, but again, so self-contained. Like, you didn't need to know a lot about where they were going. I mean, it helped, obviously, if you knew that Lorca had run into Harry Mudd and run afoul of him. But even then, like, it was just a really well-told story. And I do think that even in these short and serialized seasons, there's still place for really well-written, contained stories. I wouldn't have said that this first season of Picard was necessarily the place to do that, but I wonder if maybe now going forward we have an opportunity to do more of that, now that we've sort of resolved this one sort of arc of, you know, Picard getting old, finding his new legs in this new adventure, dying and being reborn. I wonder if now there's an opportunity to explore some of those things. Although, again, with a 7-member cast and, you know, another 10 episode season, you kind of need to do an episode focused around each one of them at a certain point. And, you know, it's tricky. It's tricky storytelling.
Mm-hmm. I do think that some of the stuff that I liked about season 2 of Discovery was that they had the overarching goal of 7 signals deal with the Red Angel, right? But they did have time to do some, and I don't think they did enough of this, but you could see it's a big difference from season 1, where they did more one-off episodes of, hey, here's where we go see, what was the name of the planet with the humans who had been transported, New Genesis or something. New Eden, right? That was a completely different episode than like when they went to Kaminar or, you know, other ones. So I think they can do more of that. Hopefully this has given them some experience, because the one with New Eden and sort of diving into, you know, to Captain Pike as who is this person as a individual and a commander, that was really good. It was very Trekkie, very old school Trekkie in that respect, and yet it was still part of a larger whole.
Yeah, I do think it'll be interesting to see how they sort of spin it forward from here. I think, you know, I think the next logical phase is just for them to sort of say, you know, never mind that Picard is a synth now, just focus on him being him, and we'll focus back on the next part of this adventure for him. I wonder what the overall crux of that will be for next season.
Yeah, so we know that he has invited Whoopi Goldberg to season 2 and as Guinan. I think that might be an interesting one to bring forward. I think there is discussion with Robert Picardo to resume his role as the emergency medical hologram. That might be interesting as well.
I want Worf and Geordi.
So Geordi, I kind of wonder if LeVar Burton will want to do it, but I have to imagine that Michael Dorn as Worf has already broken quarantine and is, you know, hammering at the door of CBS like, for the love of God, I want to be on this show. And I would love to see it, because I want to see what is Worf's opinion of this situation. And if I was writing it, I would want to write about the struggle between, Worf respects Captain Picard is like, you know, if you were any other man, I would kill you where you stand, right? Right. I respect you so much that even at your worst, I'm going to give you some slack. And yet Worf also believes in, you know, like he can't wait to die honorably, right? He can't just salivating. Yeah. He's like, yo, Picard, if you were dying, why'd you come hit me up, man? We would have gone on some crazy ass adventure and died together, right? And yet you did die, and yet you are here. How do I feel about you? I think it'd be kind of similar to his feelings around Dax, right? You know, when Jadzia died, Ezri is sort of Jadzia, but not. And I feel like it might be similar in that respect.
I always thought it was funny. It was interesting that Sisko always sees Dax as the old man, even when, it doesn't matter what body it's occupying, right? So that's kind of an interesting concept. I have a question, and it comes to Gates McFadden. Do we know why she left Star Trek for a couple of years or a year? Because she was on for like 1 season or 2 seasons as the Doctor, and then Beverly Crusher, and she left and came back. And
it's a good question. I seem to recall there being a story about it. I don't know if there was an issue with her, or if an issue, or I know,
contract or something.
Yeah, something. I don't know. Let's see.
Or they thought maybe people didn't like her. I'll Google it while you guys move on to other things.
Yeah.
So I was, as long as CBS folks, feel free to hit me up. You want to add me as a screenwriter for y'all. As long as we're adding stuff, I'm like, all right. So we got cool CGI technology. If we are going to have the EMH come on, it would be kind of interesting to show him as he was in Voyager, unchanged, and then have him talk to Picard like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. So you have a synthetic body, and yet you look old. I hadn't really considered that. I will try that too, and then okay, no more CGI. Now it's just straight up Robert Picardo looking older because he has set his visual appearance to look
That's
that way.
Keep me happy, right? Yeah.
Right? So that could be a thing, especially because he would, I think, as a synthetic life form, understand Data's perspective on it. And I would do something, not both of these to be clear, but if you're going to have John Delancey come as Q, I would do something kind of similar with the CGI of like, oh, Picard, you're so old. And like, all right, I'll, to make us both the same, I'll make myself look older too. All right, so we've gotten the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is why we don't want to spend the CGI anymore on every episode. And you could also have Q, sort of whisper to Picard, is like, the trial never ended, Picard, even after death. How about that? You just would imagine John Delancey delivering it much better than I did right now.
I'm 100% behind Q coming back, and yeah, I think that's obviously a really fun way to do it, is have him show up and be like, well, you're old, so I wanted to be old too, I think that could work really well. And the chemistry between Patrick Stewart and John Delancey was so good in the series. You'd have to think that there would be some magic if the two of them got back on the screen together. Did you see the I just looked up Gates McFadden. Did you find it, Tim?
It's gonna off of Wikipedia. It talks about how head writer Maurice Hurley didn't like working with her, so he had her let go at the end of season 1, and then Diana Muldaur, who had been in the original series, joined as the Doctor, and she didn't develop any chemistry, and they tried to get her back, and it took a call from Patrick Stewart of all people, and numerous fan letters, obviously, to bring her back. So, is that what you're going to say?
Yep, exactly right. Yep. If you can trust Wikipedia as a source, then that's the truth.
Well, Wikipedia is us, right? So
yeah, anything that's open source has got to be just a little bit. You got to put a little bit of doubt in everything you read there.
Got to check your sources.
Right.
But
but that's what they do, though.
Yeah. I've got I have a few colleagues who are well known enough to have Wikipedia pages on themselves, and they are constantly pointing out the number of inaccuracies on there.
Right.
So you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Well, I've written stuff for Wikipedia, and they've taken it down. So, and I've written some stuff for Wikipedia, and they left it up. So,
yeah,
they are very harsh critics. People who run it.
Yeah, I think it's a long way.
There's a little bit of commentary on Pulaski's season. I do think it was sort of weird that they said, "What if McCoy but woman?" as a direction for the character, and I think it really didn't work. She was just so harsh and off balance. Like it works, with McCoy being, space racist against Spock. Like it really fits that trio, and I think it just didn't fit TNG. Very similar to like, imagine, I guess this is possible. Now, imagine plucking Wesley Crusher and then shoving him into Deep Space Nine. Like, does he fit in there? Heck no. Heck no, he doesn't fit into there. And so I just think her character just didn't fit that style of show.
See, well, the thing about it is, in the original series, Kirk, McCoy, and Spock were id, ego, and superego. That's where I think they come from that sort of idea of psychology, right? Because, Kirk was like the crazy kid, and McCoy and Spock were the balancers, right? In their own ways. Like,
indeed.
McCoy was super emotional and Spock was super logical, right? So that's why I've always seen those three. Because the three of them together create the show, create the chemistry.
Yeah, it really wasn't an ensemble show for TOS, right? It was, and the movies also revolve around those three. But as an aside, is George Takei too old to do a Captain Sulu series?
Admiral Sulu.
Sure, but you shove him on the Excelsior A or something and move on. I
don't know, but could he be Could he be serious now in his later years? Right? He's a lot less reserved than he was when he was on Star Trek. If you know what I'm saying, right?
He definitely leans really hard into the oh my kind of self-referential things. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Should we wrap up on what do you got here on your link there, Jonathan?
I just added some real-time follow-up to our conversation about streaming bandwidth. So the Canadian Press has filed a story this evening that says that Netflix has lowered its video quality in Canada as demand for bandwidth has surged.
Really?
So the streaming giant says it will introduce changes today that are designed to slash its data traffic by 25% as internet service providers deal with a surge in user activity in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the lower bandwidth streams of Netflix programs should deliver the usual quality of each plan, the company said, whether it's ultra high definition, 4K high definition, or standard definition. However, they are apparently, let's see, what does it say here? In a blog post last week, the said that they...
Are they going to cut your rates?
Yeah, good luck with that.
You know, I may ask that question last
With the
week,
changes, right? Ken Florence said Netflix is simply removing the highest bandwidth streams from the platter of options. So I guess that means no more 4K? So I'd like my money back, please.
Yeah.
It's a difficult situation. I am of the mind that it is, as individual consumers, it feels a little uncouth during the current situation to go start a campaign on Twitter or something against them. At the same time, I also do think it would be quite proper for all of these providers. I'm going to throw Amazon here too, because Prime deliveries are not Prime deliveries anymore for anything other than essentials, right? It's a very dire situation. It'd be very nice if Netflix and Amazon and all these other ones said, hey, you know, we lowered it to this. We're going to give you a discount for that time period. Yes, we will take a hit, but everybody sort of understands in the stock market that, like, this is a goodwill gesture during a very troubling time.
So that's an interesting thing. I noticed that some of the Prime things I was ordering are like going to be like a month away from now. Is that because they're not, like, if you want it sooner you have to pay for it, or they're just not honoring the, because I mean obviously because of the current climate, are they not honoring it because of that? Like they want to make sure you... My
understanding is they're prioritizing essential items, you know.
Okay,
like
so that's
food.
Yeah. So my
Microsoft,
my microphone boom from my podcast doesn't count, right?
It's quite essential to us, so you'll get no argument here. But you know,
I can't get it anywhere else. I mean, that's the thing. Everything else is like lockered up, right?
Let's make a case for the fact that the Spockcast and More Than Just Code podcasts are an essential service that Tim is providing here to help people get through this difficult time.
I wasn't even going to put this part in the show, just to be honest with you, but yeah.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few are the one, Tim.
That's true.
We gotta go into the reactor. And
that was actually a genuine question I was asking you guys, but thanks for making it about.
We make it fun. If you put it on the show, it ends up fun.
That's right. I guess. I did have another question. Oh, you know what I was going to ask you though? So, John, you got a link here from YouTube. What's that?
That's the link to Issa Briones singing Blue Skies.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry, you did mention that. Okay, I missed it. Okay,
so you'll be able to listen to that if you want.
Shall we move on to our watch list?
We shall.
All right, Jaime, you got something there?
Yeah, I have not heard of Tubi, not to be confused with Quibi. This is another streaming service that has cropped up, I guess. The main reason I'm bringing it to your attention is that What We Left Behind, looking back at Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the wonderful documentary, which I actually saw in the theaters when it came out for that special event, is available for free to stream on Tubi.
Nice.
So we got the link there. I will note that it does not work if you have an ad blocker running, so, turn off that ad blocker or fire it up in an incognito window.
I wonder if we have to use our Tunnel Bear for that too.
Oh my gosh, does this not work in Canada? I apologize.
I don't know. Till I click on it, I won't know. Well, anyway, too bad there aren't ways to watch these things.
I'm assuming they're doing it as part of, the many things that we've mentioned that folks are doing to help keep folks, socially distanced and yet maintain their sanity as they deal with the lockdown from COVID-19.
Yep.
But I don't know, Tim, I don't know. The problem with Amazon Prime not working right now is like, I don't know how I'm going to acquire my purge mask. We're rapidly adding there. Where all crime is legal for one day and I don't have an appropriate mask.
The rate your president is going, I would not at all be surprised if the purge was declared any day now. Like, it really feels like that's the slope you guys are on right now.
Start watching all this dystopian fiction to prepare myself.
Yeah. Get out there, get the welding kit out there and start putting the spikes on your car. My watch list thing I've got here. So in this tradition of people who are creative, doing creative things around the messaging for COVID-19. Last week we talked about how Simon Pegg and Nick Frost did a homage to Shaun of the Dead as their promotion for this. And so Jodie Whittaker has done a in costume, in character COVID-19 piece as the Doctor from Doctor Who. Very funny. Just a little 1 minute thing on Twitter, but fun to see some of the things that people are sort of finding in the creativity. I've been enjoying a lot of, I'm a huge music fan. Normally I would be going to a concert or two each month. And so very, very sad to see so many of my concerts postponed or rescheduled or canceled. So I've been enjoying a lot of the creativity of people, going on doing Instagram lives and Facebook lives and things like that, playing their music. And to see these people who are playing these characters all also getting out there and just trying to keep people's spirits up and also get across this very important message about how to deal with with yourself during these situations, and maybe reaching a few people just through some humor and through some character pieces is fun. And so good on Jodie Whittaker for doing this.
Mm-hmm. Is that the one? Hang on, sorry. Is that the one where she's in the closet talking? Like she's in the closet talking to about what's going on outside or whatever, and how she's staying inside?
She is, yes.
Yeah. It's interesting that she doesn't mention it by name. No, I don't think she ever mentions the issue by name.
No, she's just talking about like there's something awful outside. Don't go outside. It's like very Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But yeah, very funny. Mm-hmm. And the last little thing I've got in here is just a little sales pitch. So I know that a lot of people like to collect their movies still on and not just have them streamed occasionally, but want to have full-time copies. The iTunes here in Canada is having a sale this week where they're doing movie bundles that are discounted, and one of the discounted bundles is the entire Star Trek film library. So you can buy all 10 of their movies as digital copies for your iTunes library, and it's $30. So it works out to $3 a movie, or alternatively, it's $6 for the good ones and it's free for the crappy ones.
Wait, 10? So wait, does that not include the Kelvinverse movies then?
It does not. This is the 10 TNG/TOS movies. Okay. There is a separate bundle that has the 3 other ones in it, which I think it's the 3 of them for $20 or something like that. So they're a little more expensive given their relative age.
So how does one find movie bundles these days now that we don't have iTunes anymore?
What do you mean we don't have iTunes anymore?
Well, I don't know if you haven't maybe upgraded your computer or whatever, but I now have this TV app that I have to look at for things.
Yeah, they're all still on there.
Yeah, is that how you're finding them, or are you just calling it iTunes? Or
no, I mean right now I think I found them on my iPhone.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Because there's still an app,
right?
That would
be different. Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I found them was looking through the app. So I think it's Tuesday, they update the movies that are on sale and they update the bundles that are on sale.
Oh, here they are, movie bundles. I found some Star Wars and some
so they've got a pretty good deal this week. Some contemporary movies for as low as, by the time you bundle them, $5. But the cheapest one they have right now is $3 a Trek movie. So even if you don't want to rewatch the original motion picture, or
I don't want to watch that again.
Part 5 I think would be the one I would recommend avoiding most of all. That's probably the most reprehensible example of a film in that franchise. However, really, do you want to take a vote? 1 through 10? Want to rank them?
No,
it sounds like a future episode game.
It was a tough one, and I feel like my opinions on Nemesis would change given how critical it is to understand like the deeper part of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, maybe.
It was a lot less important before.
I've seen a few of my friends who over the last few weeks are doing sort of, things to keep themselves busy. One of my friends did watch all of the 10 original films and said he's actually enjoyed Insurrection more than he thought he would, rewatching it so much later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That it's underratedly, again, essentially it's just a long and high production value episode of the show, but a good one.
Yeah.
I think that's a tricky one too. But like I say, $3 a movie, go nuts. I don't think you're going to go wrong on taking a chance on those for that price. Even I think the other one that I purchased recently was they've discounted the Dark Knight trilogy. I think it's $18 Canadian, and the reason that I wanted that one is because that's also the 4K transfers too. So if you wanted to get the 4K Blu-rays, they would be significantly more expensive than that. But if you get this version, then you can, again, I don't know if iTunes is throttling its streaming, but you can do the full download and you can watch it as well, and it'll be 4K. So.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'll have to go over to the iPhone because I'm not seeing the same sort of choices. So, Jaime, what do you got here? This Doctor Who character?
So I am new to the Whoverse, and I didn't know what a Sontaran was. So I had to look it up. In this audio-only medium, it won't make sense, but I threw into the show notes here what my face looked like when I Googled them. They're an interesting design, that's for dang sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a unique-looking species.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I like the rhino guys that they had. The Jadoon.
Those are Jadoon.
Yeah, those dudes are pretty cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jaime, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where would they look?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
And of course, if they could figure out where your house is, they could find you there too, right? Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
Alrighty, and my name is Timitra, Timmitra. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me lurking around. So, until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Well, I guess that's the question. Then we can have that discussion. We still never did our Spockies.
And normally we would end up filling the hiatus with
Movies,
like big tentpole pictures, which are like not happening. So who knows?
Yeah.
And I don't know if this showed for y'all, but we got a very brief disco teaser, not even teaser, like a moving trailer, a moving poster. It was just Michael Burnham. The like planet. So you guys did see this. So it wasn't a CBS All Access thing. They showed the Discovery coming soon, which is not a date. So who knows?
Yep. Well, and there was some discussion around post-production on some of these things now has sort of gone a little bit askew, right? So some things are going to be able to continue depending on where they're at. Like they delayed the one things I didn't mention in our recap was that they've announced that they've delayed the final episode of Walking Dead for this season. There's been a few things that they couldn't finish because post-production requires a bunch of people working on stuff, and there isn't the capacity with this shelter-in-place stuff that's going on. So I think that's in a few circumstances that's the case for shows. They've also announced all the CW shows that they had to shut them down. So they're all going to sort of reach a cap at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few different news stories talking about this teaser that went up as well. And it's a weird one. Did you see with the Burnham with the flag and like?
When did this one go up? Today?
Yeah, this morning I think.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Production was completed in February. Is currently in post-production, which is being done remotely, but they haven't announced when it's coming. And then Lower Decks is again also sort of in the offing as well. And there hasn't been any news about what's happening with the Section 31 one that they were working on.
I had assumed pre-pandemic that clearly right after Picard they're going to have like a week, maybe two at most before Discovery starts, so they can keep you paying for your service continuously. But now maybe that's why they gave the free month. They're like, well, everybody who's paid for Picard, will only miss like a week, and this will get us subscribers to fill the gap, right?
Yeah.
Watch it free for a month, catch up on everything, and hey, look, we've got the show ready for Discovery. Now you can continue paying us, or start paying us, I should say.
Yeah.
So are you still watching the Ready Room or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch this final one because I think I had said this before Jonathan came on that just given the length of this episode, I watched about half of Picard during lunch and then half during dinner, so I didn't have a chance to watch Ready Room, which I normally watch during dinner.
But are they doing like Zoom calls or they're all in the can already?
I think they were all in the can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because on The Talking Dead, they've gone to a Zoom call style where you've got the four people talking, clearly sitting at home instead of sitting on the couch as they normally do, right? So I haven't been watching The Walking Dead, but I do still have The Talking Dead. So it's kind of weird watching a Zoom call on your television, right? Yeah.
Speaking of event days, apparently today also, as well as being Doctor Who Day, is also Leonard Nimoy's birthday.
Oh,
wow. How old would he have been?
Let's see. Just saw it a second ago. Yeah. He was born on March 26, 1931. So let's see. 31 is 11 years from now, so he would have been 89. Also, it's weird. He's been gone 6 years. Have you guys seen William Shatner's tweets during the pandemic?
No, I haven't.
He's been doing them as captain's logs.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, it's well worth following.
I do follow him, but I haven't seen any of his stuff.
Yeah, he's been doing them as, captain's log, stardate, blah, blah, blah. And then he talks about, like, the weird world that he's in, being trapped at home as an 89-year-old man.
Just saw a video of Kurt Browning roller skating.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on out there.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me today about there's a whole bunch of WebEx calls where people are going to the bathroom, but they don't realize they're still on camera.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that. I've actually...
Yeah, I saw the one with the blonde lady, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah?
That was the one I'd seen, yeah.
There was one where somebody was doing they were doing a virtual town hall or something like that, or a city council meeting or something like that remotely, and somebody had put on a microphone so it would be clear, but then you could hear them going to the bathroom in the background. And, my coworkers have said that a few times, because sometimes we'll do a video chat and sometimes we're just doing an audio chat, and a few times people have said, I'm running a faucet. Like, it's just, they're trying to head off things at the pass before you get the wrong impression.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
That's why I use, what is this? Is this push mic control or is this shush?
Yeah.
Push mic control.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Or shush with, it's off normally for audio, and then I have to push a button to talk.
Yeah.
So that was a rookie move on the audio part. The other part that's a rookie move is if you're going to go on the toilet and you can't miss the call, you have to turn the device away from you so that nobody sees anything.
We're not doing video calls on so they can't see the tile behind you or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you turn off your video, and if you somehow forgot that, you turn the device away, and that's if you're not using the nifty covers for the webcam and stuff. There are many.
Yeah, we talked yesterday about Westworld on More Than Just Code. Of course, Jaime had to cover his ears, right?
Yeah, because you guys had seen the episodes, I think, and I haven't.
So is it coming out once? Like, do you know what day of the week it's coming out on?
Westworld?
Sundays.
Sunday nights. Yeah. It's in the glamour spot for HBO. It's the Sunday night Game of Thrones.
Sunday night. Okay, right.
Wait, it's 9 p.m. Does that make it midnight for you guys?
No, it's time shifted, so it's same time.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So I watched I've watched all of the Amazing Stories on Apple TV. Sorry, all the three. There's only 3 of them out right now. So I think they did the same thing they did with the other Apple TV shows. They show you 3 of them, and then I guess because if you have a free service, you can't binge the entire thing as Jaime would do if he had it, right? So have you watched Amazing Stories at all, Jaime?
I've only seen the first one. Are the other 2 amazing?
There's 3 of them up there, yeah. So the first one was about a kid, right?
I don't know what you mean by kid, but it was the guy who was in the basement.
In the base, yes.
He goes back in time to the 1919.
Yeah, the next one is about a runner, and then the third one is stars Robert Forster, who is no longer with us. He plays an old dude in that one, which he was, coincidentally. But yeah, sort of a superhero kind of story. It's interesting. But yeah, just like the 3 of them, and then I guess we have to wait for the rest episode. Like I would assume another episode's coming out on Friday, which is what they were doing with The Servant and For All Mankind and The Morning Show. When I watched those ones, you only get the first 3 episodes, and then you have to wait every week to get a new episode, right?
Yeah, it seems like Apple TV Plus has done it in a modified. It's not Netflix drop them all at once, and it's not CBS All Access tease them out 1 week at a time. It's like you drop a handful, and then you got to wait for the rest. Yeah,
I did finish Mythic Quest too. This is technically my watch list, but I watched Mythic Quest. That was kind of good.
Yeah, I got to do that one. And there's trailers out that we didn't talk about for Home Before Dark, which looks interesting, and Defending Jacob, which also looks interesting.
What are those about?
So Home Before Dark is about this 9-year-old girl who is investigating, as a reporter, and I guess it's based on real stuff in some way, some sort of murder that happened to her dad's friend, or disappearance, I should say. So it looks promising. Like this stuff always depends on the child actor, and this one seemed from the trailer to be pretty good, so interested there. And Defending Jacob stars Chris Evans, Captain America. as a father whose teenage son is accused of murdering his friend. So that one looks, the trailers, you can find it on the Apple TV Plus app. They look pretty good. So we might give those a try when they come out in April, I want to say.
Yeah. Devs. I've been watching Devs. The one about developers?
Right. That's on FX. Wait, is that only on Hulu or is that on normal FX?
I live in Canada. I have no idea.
Yeah.
FX. It's on FX, yeah.
Okay.
For us, it's on normal FX.
I think I might have FX through YouTube TV, so I'll see if I can find it. Otherwise, if it's on Hulu, then I'll have to wait. I'll have to wait to the binging period when I binge the Orville season 3 and whatever season is current for Handmaid's Tale and other stuff.
Did you guys watch Zombieland 2 yet?
Double Tap?
Yeah.
That was, yeah, I've seen that one.
I haven't watched it.
I enjoyed that more than I thought I would. I enjoyed.
Is it on? What's it on?
I got it off of. I watched it on an airplane first, and then I got it off of iTunes because I wanted to watch it on a bigger screen.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it surprisingly keeps the quality up. It's not like high art, but it's funny. It's really funny.
Hope you paid attention because that's what things are going to be like real soon. You start choosing a new home if you were kind of jealous of one. It's like,
yeah, Graceland sounds good, and I do think I'm going to start pricing out monster trucks.
I wonder if that IMAX movie by Christopher Nolan is going to come out on.
Yeah, that's a good question. That wasn't coming till later in the summer, though, I think, right?
So I'm looking at some pre-orders here. We've got Bad Boys for Life. We got Sonic the Hedgehog, Call of the Wild.
I don't know which Christopher Nolan IMAX movie you guys are talking about.
Tenet,
yeah.
Yeah, Tenet, T-N-E-T.
Have you not
It's
seen
supposed to come out in July 16th, I think is July 17th is when it's supposed to be in theaters. So maybe by then they figure they're safe. They showed the scene from it ahead of Star Wars, something we saw.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
they showed
I've seen it a couple of times now. And
the IMAX version, and it looks like. I mean, Nolan's a great filmmaker, but it looks really interesting.
Yeah, I think Aruna and I went to something. I think Aruna and I went to see something recently. Oh, 1917
or 1917. Yeah,
17. Yeah. 1917, and they showed another trailer before that. They showed more of, like, it was less of a teaser than the previous version of the trailer. Probably let out too much of the story. So, in my opinion,
I don't know. I watched it. It was like a 10-minute scene, and I still had no clue what was happening. But I was like, I'm in. Like, it looks really cool, but it's hard to understand what's happening.
Anyway, I have to go, and you have to go, and Jaime has to go.
Alrighty.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
At Sleep Outfitters Outlet, great sleep is a big deal. Save 40 to 60% every day on every Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic. Queens as low as $249. Customer exchanges, closeouts, and floor samples. Inventory changes daily, so come in for your dream deal today. With no credit needed financing, expert advice, and up to 60% off retail, it's never been easier to get the sleep and savings you deserve. Go to sleepoutfittersoutlet.com for financing details and to find a store near you.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.